So let's call the meeting to order then. Quorum is here. Julie's in the kitchen. She'll be here in just a minute. We want to get started tonight. This is budget training information session 2. Our first one was very, very positive, so I'm expecting the same out of this one. Last time we ended on time. I expect the same tonight. So comments are brief, questions are concise, all that good stuff. David's here to keep us all in line. So I know that Larry's got to get going to another very important meeting, so we probably ought to start out with just doing the introductions. Kate, are you gonna do the deed?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
I will. So for the viewing audience, because we're going to put this on our, put it up on YouTube. Sean will work his magic to put all of the edits and things like that in. But I'm just going to quickly go through the presentation. So purpose of the session, we want to introduce to you the senior leadership team. Not that you guys haven't had an opportunity to meet them, but for anybody who's watching out in the public, they can meet who the team is. I want to give, their intent is to provide you an overview of what the association does from an operational standpoint, so you get a little bit more in depth of what they're looking at.
A request?
Yes, sir.
Could those speaking be as close as possible to the, whatever the transmitter is there?
Sure, we will make sure that we try and work that out. You're going to speak in a...
To the extent possible.
Yeah, definitely. Actually, what we'll do for you, John, is we happen to have an empty seat that's close to the microphone. So we will make sure that people sit there to present their information. Does that sound good?
That would be heavenly.
Excellent. And you can hear me okay, is that correct?
I hear you perfectly now.
Great. I can project when I need to. So what we're doing, John, right now is just we're going to be introducing the senior leadership team to everybody tonight, also providing an overview of the association's operations through them, kind of through a different lens so you can see and hear all about what they do. They're going to be highlighting the key projects that they're working on in this budget cycle, and they're going to be measuring that thus far in the year against the financial plan. That is the intent there. Kind of giving a status report on how they're doing on those projects, and then they're going to give you an overview as to what they think are some preliminary plans that we need to be thinking of, that they're thinking of for 2018-19 budget cycle, just to get those in to your minds. I will disclose that one of the things I started to work on before I came downstairs this evening was a comprehensive laundry list, putting all of the things that they've highlighted on one sheet of paper. I'll send that out to you guys tomorrow, so it's kind of in one chunk. So we have quite a bit of information to go through this evening. That we will be sending to you, putting in Dropbox at the end of the evening. We didn't do it in advance because we wanted to make sure that we had your full attention. Although John gets the opportunity to have it now, so no reading ahead. Don't give away any of the answers, okay, John?
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. All right. So. Senior leadership team, we have several great people here to talk with you tonight. Land use with Larry Butler. He's our Senior Director of Parks, Recreation, and Community Resources. Capital Projects with Garrett Skinner, so he'll be talking to you about everything that we're doing there. Maintenance and Environmental Management is our Deputy Director, Mike McNamara, for maintenance. Sitting behind me, we'll get to, yep, there you go, peace sign he gives to everybody. Covenants Administration with Anna Verone. She's sitting right behind you there, so you'll be getting to hear from her in a minute. Administration and Member Services, HR, and that is Melissa Kelly directly behind me. Again, she'll be coming up to speak after a while. Finance and IT, Robert Wood. And Communications, Community Engagement, Mike Leone. Then Record Services and Environmental Education, our Deputy Director, Laura Kowalski. And last but not least, myself. We purposefully grouped these things in this order. By necessity, Larry, because he has to get going this evening, but then we wanted to try and keep all of our land use property issues together and then talk about the exciting stuff, right, all of the administrative things, and then get down to what's probably going to be the bulk of our conversation this evening is going to be on rec services. We've already heard some calls, and Laura's got some great information to provide to you tonight on what we're doing there. But we do see this as kind of the springboard as you're talking about the budget in 2018-19, especially in light of the fact that later this week we're going to be starting the district meetings and collecting information from members. So you're armed with a whole bunch of information when you're going to these district meetings. So what I'm going to do is hand the microphone over to Mr. Butler, who's going to come sit down right where Mike Saney would be sitting to talk.
Before we start, member comments at all?
Good question.
We didn't have it on finance.
Okay, I didn't see any.
Okay. Thank you, Sherry.
Good evening. Good evening. Nice to sit here with you. Thanks for taking me first. As you probably know, I'm going over the P&Z meeting tonight. They're having their second discussion on the PRC zoning ordinance. First meeting had about 90 people. It's rather raucous. We expect something similar tonight. Plus they have an application that they're reviewing as well. We're on Michael Faraday. So thanks for taking me first. So what I want to do, I'm going to take about 3 minutes. It's actually about 5. So I promised my coworkers that I'd be quick, right? Timing, right. So primarily in the land use section, this is what we do. We coordinate the development, redevelopment activities, and transportation activities with Reston citizens and our advisory committee, our land use council, John McBride from Urban Development of Middleman. And what we're really trying to do is keep people educated. Because what we have found is that the county, we don't think does an adequate enough job of providing information, current information about all the projects going on at Reston. And those of you who follow that, there are no less than 20 applications, rezoning applications and things like that in process right now. Either the pre-application, the review process, or already scheduled for public hearing with the Planning Commission or Board of Supervisors. So there's a whole lot going on. Just look at the number of cranes that we have in the sky here. So Kate and I also work quite a bit with the local development community to make sure that RE's interests are addressed to the greatest extent possible. One of the difficult things, as most of you have heard, is that a lot of these projects are in the corridor, but are not subject to RE covenants. So there is no required DRB review for those projects. And so what we're trying to do is influence those as best as possible, whether it's getting them to make their residential units RE members, or look, the essential elements of Reston to make sure that their projects look and feel like we think they should, for lack of a better term. And then we also work closely, and we have a continuing dialogue with Fairfax County staff at various levels, transportation, with RDAG, that Kate's been working with, as well as staff coordinators and things like that, so that at the staff level at the county, they understand what our interests are as well. And that's a kind of a long-term process. That also includes working very closely with the staff in the supervisor's office, which I think we do a pretty good job of that. So those are kind of the key functions, but first and foremost, it's really to keep people informed, keep our membership informed. Much like St. John's would, when people hear about something, something like that that's really impactful to them in their neighborhood, people get really stirred up. What the county is trying to do also with a new effort that Sharon Bulova started, which is basically how do we look at land use and how do we communicate land use throughout the county. And I think they could probably take a lesson from how we do it in Reston, because I think we at least have started to do a better job than most communities, so that it's not immediate reactionary when they hear about a project. And you're still going to get that depending on the project, but with so much going on in Reston, you can kind of lose some of the detail of all those things. So the department focus for 2017, Kate left my little graphic in there, fingers crossed. We've made actually a couple offers to a land use planner to get some assistance on some of the analysis and so forth. And we have had somebody, I'm not even going to use the person's name, but it's supposed to start next week. But until that person is in the door, I don't want to jinx it, because it's been very difficult. There are a lot of planners being hired at a lot of municipal levels, land use firms and things like that. So that's all I'm going to say about that. One of the things that I think you probably all have been on that piece of the website, we try to keep that as current as possible. Anytime we get new presentations from P&Z meetings or RNAG or whatever, any of these community meetings, and there's scads of them, we try to keep our website up to date. So it's really one portal where people can go to get current information. So that is something we're really trying to do. Working with the advisory committees, MTAC, EAC, CEAC to some degree, 55 plus, keeping them notified and getting their input on different development applications, which you've seen from our comment documents, particularly for those that are under the RA deed and the rest of the covenants. And so that's something that we're doing. There are so many projects right now, and there frankly isn't enough time even with the committees to look at every development project. And I'm really talking about the ones in the corridor, because there's so many of those going on at any one time. And the level of detail for each of those is incredible. There might be an 80-page plan set with engineering detail and so forth. So we're trying to keep up with that as best as possible. It will help if this person walks in the door next week. Then conducting facility evaluations, not unlike what we did for Seacrest Homes and Sunrise Square. So we hope there'll be more of that, where developers, hey, we want to join in the association, we've got to do the analysis, because there has to be a public hearing with the board of directors, and a cost-benefit analysis of that. So those are some things we've got to do more of, particularly with Kate and I working in the development community. We do know we've got a couple of those right around the corner that we hope to bring up, or get in front of you. So a real quick overview, number of employees, and this is just the land use section. I should say that unfortunately I won't be here for Mike and Lord to talk about all the rest of the fun stuff that Parks and Rec does. So I presented that before, so it's actually kind of nice not to have to present all of that in one night, so thank you. Okay, so, well, it depends on how late PNC goes. I might text you and say, are you still there? So we'll see.
The answer will be no.
Answer will be no, yeah.
The answer would be no, we won't still be here when you're done. Because we know how those meetings go.
No, we'll see, we'll see. All right, so two full-time employees, cost center number 4,900. Here's the 2017 budget expenses, which includes a fair amount of legal expenses for Loden, Feldman, and Fiddleman. And the primary variance to date is that we haven't hired a planner. So that's been the single biggest challenge. Melissa and I mean, it's been one of the more frustrating processes we've had. So just real quick, a couple of things that we're looking at for the 2018-2019. We'd like to bring some of the functions that OFP's been doing for us, bring that in-house. And with a planner on staff, I think we can do that. With the land use tracker, also creating a Reston-only interactive map in GIS, where people can click upon a parcel and find out all the information about that, who the applicant is, who the representatives are, what they're actually proposing, and track that through as it changes through various revisions. So that's one of the goals that we have. The land records research, that's with so much going on now, there's a lot of times we need to get into the CPAN system, because all the court records goes back to the 1700s. And I'm sure David's very well aware of this.
1742.
Yeah, 1742. So we think it would make sense for this organization, because of the number of properties we have and the interaction, to have our own subscription to that, so we can do some of our own basic research. It's not doing a title search, but it's basically land records research, easements and things like that. So that's something we want to look into doing. And then we may need to secure an additional license for ArcGIS right now. We're going to see if the online version works for us, because I think we have that ability, but whether or not that will be powerful enough to do the things we want, that's yet to be determined. That's something we're looking into. And I've already mentioned the interactive GIS map. And then right now we're working with the pedestrian lighting working group to look at RA properties, and we're actually presenting to the design review board a status report tomorrow night for those of you that have an interest in that. We're working with the EAC and others, and what we want to do is really kind of bring that home with some more specifics as we get a little bit further down the road. Victoria's our liaison, so that's another thing we're going to keep moving on. That's pretty close to 5 minutes.
That's it.
So, I'm sure there's questions.
There you go.
One thing that we all need to keep in mind is that this department, I believe, is relatively new. Is that correct? Like when you look at perhaps why have assessments grown over the past few years? Why have they gone so high? This is not a huge driver, but this is an effort that we didn't have as Reston Association 5-10 years ago. What would you say, Larry?
Oh, really about 3.5 years ago.
Yeah, right. So the budget of $450,000 is something that's new. We need to just keep in mind, this is part of the driver.
Some of it buried though within something else.
Well, I don't think we have this much focus. So as a board, you know, you need to, of course, say, do we want this? And given everything that's going on, I think yes. And we have to understand there's a cost when we add things and we want protection, that there's a cost to it. But I think a few things is how do we measure success in this department? I have to try to keep that in mind. And also, Larry, of the 450,000 annual budget, how much do you know or do you think is external attorneys or external consultants helping? And is this an
I think it's about-
opportunity?
I'd have to go back to the line item, I think it's about 130, maybe Robert has that.
Around about that.
Yes.
Yeah, that's actually 154,000.
154.
Those are all my questions.
I purposely did not take the point.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'll keep talking. Your land record search, will that help perhaps if we have questions of is this trail ours or is it not ours? So that could be shared by Garrett?
Oh, yeah, yeah, we've already chatted about the
Okay.
benefits of that.
And there'll be some cost savings as a result of that as well.
When do you think the land records will be online?
Well, we have it as a 2018 thing.
Okay.
It's not, again, I think it's $600 a year for the subscription, so that's probably something we could do earlier if the board, we wouldn't mind getting started with that
I was just
soon.
thinking that if we have even a single request from our attorneys to look, it's gonna start getting to that 600 real quick. And I think we probably have one that we might wanna search very soon, if not already.
But if it's what I think it is with lighting,
No, not letting,
something different
transcript,
in your area or
not
the one
letting,
that's?
just generally, so we have full information on how to deal with something. We'll talk about that later.
Okay.
So Danielle, you said 450, what was the answer on, do we know what the part of that is legal?
Yes.
154
Actually, it's 154 to 12, and I think 130 is correct.
for just
Yeah,
lyrics,
so
right?
some goes to contract review.
So external accountants, not accountants, external attorneys or consultants, 155,000 roughly.
No, 100.
For land use, 130 only. For that.
So the 450,000 that we have annual budget, 130 is
Professional and
attorneys.
technical.
And the rest is salaries.
I don't think salaries, is
For the most
salaries
part.
in that, or is that a durable?
Yeah, salaries.
Okay.
You mentioned DRB. And I know that we're encouraging DRB to reach out and meet with the developers in the corridor, even though they aren't under that jurisdiction. So, and I don't recall seeing you and McBride do this, so it's really a question of, maybe I just don't remember. Is there a briefing to DRB of upcoming projects? Or how are we getting them
So
in
the-
sync? Because we're gonna ask DRB to step up and be a bit more proactive, right?
Well, it's a little, kind of a double-edged sword. So for the corridor, well, the already covenanted land,
Right.
they're coming to the DRB.
Right.
That's, we're not gonna talk
Right.
about that. For the corridor projects, the P&Z has been really good about strongly encouraging applicants.
Right,
For instance, the one that's coming tonight,
yes.
to go in and have a courtesy review with the DRB. I tried to get that for tomorrow night's meeting, and the schedule did not work out.
Okay.
Now, we'll see how well received it is
For the one
when
that's
the
tomorrow.
P&Z says, hey, have you been in front of the DRB? And they say, no, we haven't. In addition, I sent the information to the DRB and said, hey, they're going to be in front of P&Z tonight.
Yeah,
So
and I
perhaps
saw that there was
you
some
can come-
traffic.
But
Yeah,
that,
you can
Yeah.
come do that.
but I'm going to guess that you're thinking that the kind of presentation that John gives to the RA board would also be good to be given to the DRB. Am I
Yeah.
guessing correctly?
Yes.
Okay,
And that's certainly easy. to
easily
do.
done, yeah. We can get time on
Or
their
even
schedule,
if
give them
we
a high
say, here's
level.
the snippet on the,
Mhm.
go watch it on YouTube,
Sure.
here's the night, here's the timestamp.
No, that's a
So that
good
they could
idea,
do
to
it.
give a high
So-
level overview
So
of
that
what's
they
coming.
don't necessarily have to
Okay.
pay for it twice, but,
Well, I can do that presentation too.
Right. but I'm just thinking that that might be kind of, even if it's a quarterly basis, that would be worthwhile. Maybe Anna agrees or disagrees, as we push for, their strategic vision.
If folks could speak just a little louder, please.
Sorry, John, I forgot. I didn't see a
That's
bubble
okay.
head on the
That's
microphone.
okay.
So can we get back to the budget then? So you said, so of the 450, 130 is attorney fees-ish, and the rest is salary benefits, is that correct? Those two
Yeah,
employees?
total number you have.
Yeah, I don't have those numbers with me
Ish.
right now. Ish, yeah.
Okay.
We were just trying to give a high-level overview to you guys, but
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. And what you're asking, this is a 2018 ask, is pretty much a subscription is, and you said something else maybe? Is that?
ArcGIS license, an additional ArcGIS license. You have the online GIS protocols.
we haven't really put any numbers to
Okay.
things that we're showing tonight. These are just things that we're considering and we'll come back to later, so I don't want to get hung up on,
Okay.
Got it.
here's that particular number. We're just anticipating that
Makes sense.
doing the land use tracker in-house and the GIS and title searches, that's going to save us money, as well as other things, so we'll get that individual in. That's the ultimate goal, is
Right.
to
Okay.
lower overall expenses.
There, really quickly, what's in your revenue?
That was for if we were conducting workshops and so forth.
I'm just wondering if there's more opportunities and if we have, just wondering if there's revenue opportunities, if we have trackers. We can brainstorm separately and take that to a separate the parking lot. And then also, the work that we have our external lawyers doing, do we need that land use tracker updated every month? I don't know how often that's, do you like the frequency is the question?
Well, I think
Really?
the frequency is helpful, and when we bring that in-house, we'll be much closer to it, quite frankly.
Great.
And I think what we'll do, we've honed it down to really the major projects and not, every single little project that is occurring in Reston.
Yeah.
But I think it's been, from what I've heard, when I refer people to that page, because we post them on the website, people do find it helpful, but it's a lot of information. You gotta want it to go through that.
Okay.
So we're trying to make that a little more high level.
The detail will be there, but high level will be there too.
Thank you.
Okay, turn it over.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Larry.
Eric, it's all yours.
Thanks, Larry.
Okay, gotta run. See you all.
Thanks.
All right, good evening. Good evening. So I have the pleasure of introducing the new department for RA, and that's the Capital Projects Department. So our focus is really identified based on two of the strategic focus areas of optimizing member experiences and managing competing resources, which we do quite a bit of. And in order to do that, of course, our main initiative is to manage the aging infrastructure that we have throughout the community through implementation of capital rehabilitation or renovation projects. Engage the community in capital projects in the planning process to better define the needs that exist throughout the community, as well as to make sure that we can identify specific scope that addresses the needs. And lastly, to deliver capital projects, most importantly, through effective management of budgets and schedules for the many projects that we have. Our focus for 17 is really focused on making sure that we can set a strong foundation for the department. Again, it's new. Although we have existing staff, some of the initiatives, or many of the initiatives that we've been implementing this year are new to them. So want to make sure that we focus on just building a good foundation, a good base for progressing throughout the remainder of this year, as well as preparing for this budget cycle. So our focus has been proper project planning and initiation, scope development and strong scope development, making sure that we have very specific scopes identified for projects, and that those scopes are quantifiable, so that as we communicate with contractors, vendors, there's very little wiggle room in terms of what their interpretation may be of what we may want or desire for a specific project. And as you see on the diagram, focus on the project management best practices and making some tweaks to, I think, what existing board members may remember as the 5 bubbles. We've sort of converted to the 6 chevrons of the project management process. And that's really make sure that we can focus on the upfront. So you'll see project initiation and project planning and scoping being the first 2 steps. The project initiation is one that we added to the process to really make sure that we focus on evaluating projects and making sure that they are ready for production, so to speak. And making the adjustment to the purple chevron, which previously I think was just architecture and engineering, to adding design, architecture and engineering, and separating the design from the planning and scoping process as it existed before, so that we have very distinct project planning and initiation phases, and then a separate design and engineering phase leading through the rest of the project phases that were pre-existing. The other addition you'll see are those little starbursts, as especially for the new board members. Those are what we identify as key decision points. These are check-in points for the board to really be able to provide input, get an update on a project. And this is really focuses on the much larger projects. We won't necessarily have to have a decision point for every single project that we have in the portfolio, but specifically those that are either significant in size or may be very contentious or have a lot of attention on them. Now, having these decision points, I think, will be very helpful to make sure that, again, you all have the ability to provide some input and get an update on the project, and that we're showing the members that we're progressing through the project and we're taking the time to make the right decisions, especially on those that may have a possibility of getting out of hand in terms of budget or scope. Other focuses for this year has been one of the examples that you have in your handouts in front of you is the development of the capital project snapshot. This is something that we presented to the fiscal committee last month and got their blessing. This is really the dashboard for capital projects. At any point in time, this allows us to really know what's going on with the capital budget. This is linked to our financial system that Robert's team uses.
We'll come back at that.
And hopefully will be a good sort of check-in point, again, to just have some awareness of where we are each month with capital projects. So you can see what our budget is by category, the actual budget that's been identified once the project has been initiated, what that variance may be. Some projects end up costing a little more, some less. And overall, my goal is to make sure that our overall variance to budget is in the black as much as possible. And that if at all possible, we can kind of redesignate that money at the end of the year back into the triple RF, while still making sure that we execute everything that's on this list for the given year. Another sort of highlight of this snapshot is in the bottom left corner, the blue box, the ability to see the status of our multi-year projects. The current setup of our annual finances, that we only look at what's budgeted for the year. So for those multi-year projects, when we have expenditures that exist in previous years, those sort of disappear from view, so to speak. So this will at least allow us to see in one spot where we are with with a project that's spanning multiple years. And as we move forward, we may still have a lot of projects, not a lot, but we'll have an increase in multi-year projects as many of them will increase in size, possibly increase in scope as as I mentioned before, there are a lot of aging assets that need some attention that we may not be able to address all in 1 year. So take some time and view that snapshot. That's actually what you have in front of you should be current based on numbers as of this morning. Other focuses have been to strengthen our project procurement and contracting procedures. I've been working with our consultants at Odin Feldman to make sure that we have strong templates for contracts, for general services, for architecture and engineering, and for construction. It's essential that we have our own contracts that we require our consultants or vendors to utilize instead of signing proposals that really have clauses that keep their interests in mind. At least our template agreements, and they don't like to use the word template, but our standard agreements make sure that we're guarding the interests of RA, and we're holding our consultants to the standards that we expect of them. And lastly, focusing on establishing policies and procedures, documentation for the department as it relates to procurement, project management, contracting, and communications. And I think at the next board meeting, you'll see a glimpse of one of our solutions for communications that we will be presenting in terms of a communication plan. And lastly, for our focus, we're looking to establish the capital projects web presence. You may have seen that we've at least started that process. There is a page on the RA website dedicated to capital projects with some brief explanations of what you can expect us to be able to populate very soon, as well as a procurement section. We want, in tandem with strengthening the procurement process, we also want to provide the opportunity to publicize, especially the larger procurement opportunities that we have available for any of those vendors who are looking for opportunities to work for RA, whom we may not know is there, who don't have an existing relationship with us. So there's just another opportunity for us to expand our pool of vendors and provide some more awareness of what's going on with RA capital projects. I mentioned coordination with our communications and community engagement teams to develop more communications products as they relate to capital projects. As we prepare for the next reserve study in 2019, we really need to have a good awareness of what all of our assets are throughout the community. And the current reserve study, we know, doesn't necessarily list every single asset that we know is ours, and may have some assets that are not ours. So our intention as we start to prepare for that reserve study is to begin that process to catalog everything that we know we have and investigate those things that we might have that we're not so sure of, so that when we conduct the reserve study in 2019, we're doing so knowing that we have awareness and documentation of everything that is ours to help us better plan for the future and really identify what that long-term budget really needs to be based on the assets that we have and what the replacement cycle is and what the remaining life that may still exist on some of those assets. So we'll sort of start to get that process going. As you'll see in 18, we'll designate some resources for that. And lastly, as I mentioned, related to procurement is the development of a vendor database to increase our inventory of service providers. Although we've had a lot of existing relationships and some long-term relationships with some vendors, our procurement process, our purchase order process requires us to send out bids or receive a minimum of 3 bids for every procurement opportunity. It's not that easy when you don't have awareness of who's actually available and who has the capability to do that work. So this will help us, as we build the database, will help us to sort of better manage, especially for capital as a starting point, who's available, who provides service, and what specialties exist, and then at some point even start to be able to rate those vendors. So we know, if I happen to work with one vendor that doesn't necessarily provide great service, one of the other department directors knows not to possibly enter into a relationship with that same vendor. So this will be hopefully a good clearinghouse internally for us to really identify and work with vendors better. Department overview. We have 4 employees, 1 new employee, being myself, 3 other employees with probably a combined service time of roughly 60 years. So a benefit that we have within the department is there's still a lot of institutional knowledge that's been extremely helpful for me coming in as a new member of the team. And at least a couple of those have spent time either in CSF or working on capital projects in the previous organization structure. So that transition time and really the assistance that's been needed to really help create the foundation has definitely been accelerated because of that knowledge. In terms of the budget, of course, capital projects, we are the spenders. We don't make any revenue, at least not now. So what you see there in terms of our expenses is directly related to salary and benefits for the 4 employees that we have. And the variance that we have is really due to timing differences with, I believe, merit increases. Merit increases are spread out over the entire year versus I think we have a few employees with late anniversary dates. So that's really the driving factor behind that variance. Lastly, our focus and recommendations for 2018-19 that you will definitely hear in a lot greater detail. Both next Monday at the fiscal committee meeting, we're going to focus on the capital budget for 18-19 as well as the first draft of the 5-year capital plan. And then in the budget session in July, we'll focus in detail on that capital listing. But wanted to provide some highlight of what we're really looking to do. One, as you see on the top of the slide, is to focus on the full facility evaluation and planning process. As I mentioned before, we know there are large facilities that are aging and that need a lot of attention. And we want to get that process kicked off early, at least planning and making sure that we can start to evaluate some of these. Lake Thoreau Pool being one of them, as well as Golf Course Island and Audubon Pool, to at least in 18 start the planning process. And you'll see for 19, we will recommend that attention to focus on Thoreau Pool. If you're familiar with it, it's a site that is right on the lake. It's on a hillside, and we've identified some significant issues with it, possibly sliding a bit into the lake and having some structural issues, although right now not a safety concern, but if we continue to ignore and kick that can down the road, it could become a significant and very costly repair later. So getting the process started early to plan and evaluate is essential. Other major projects for the 2-year budget cycle, Lake Ann Dam renovation, we know is needed. That's currently being evaluated by our engineering consultant to determine what exactly we may need to do to meet the DCR requirement to maintain our certification. Once we know that, then we'll be able to really figure out the plan to move forward. The silver lining is that we've already started to sort of set aside money to address the dam. So you'll see in the 2017 list, we have about $500,000 designated for Lake Ann Dam. And in 18, there's roughly 700,000 identified specifically for that. So hopefully, the end result is that we will have a project that fits within that scope. If not, we'll, of course, work with you all to figure out a plan to deal with it. Because safety around that dam is definitely essential now that it's considered a high hazard dam. Thorough dredging is just identified because it is a large project, because of the size. We have thorough identified for 18, Audubon for 19. As of now, Lake Thoreau pool facility renovation, as I mentioned, and lastly, North Hills tennis lighting. That's one. If you remember previous board meetings, we talked about the significant costs to update lighting. And since North Hills is a court that's identified in the 2018 reserve study as really being time for full renovation, including lighting, thought this would be a good opportunity to kind of include that into a full facility rental. One of the, sort of related to that, one of the things that we've identified when looking at the reserve study, there are a lot of the smaller items that are part of the system, especially the lighting system, that aren't included in that reserve. So when lighting is identified, for example, to be replaced, what's considered, or previously has been considered in the reserve study, has only been bulbs, shoebox, and pole. But when you have a 50-year-old system or 40-year-old system, a lot of the infrastructure under that system is in need of repair. So we have a lot of rusted conduit or systems where roots may be damaging the system. And although that's not identified now in the reserve study, we know it needs to be, and sort of in concert with identifying these facilities that are in need of change, we're also going to make sure that's a part of our new approach to tackling the reserve study, to identify those systems that have components that individually may not necessarily be capital items, but when you group them all together, they are. So that's pretty much it. That's the focus for capital. Any questions?
Our vendor management system, is that going to be a bespoke system, or are we getting off-the-shelf system? May already have some stuff built in, like Good Vendor, that sort of thing.
Yeah, we're trying to figure out what the right option is. We haven't started that process yet.
Okay, so it's,
But we're shopping.
okay.
If you have any ideas for us too. you're
I
more
could
welcome.
probably send names about 6 of them that I have.
Great.
already.
We appreciate it.
That would be
Yeah.
helpful. That would be great.
Yeah.
Actually, it's a question of the board, and Kate has actually brought this up that she wanted to do before. Some of the projects that are going to come before you are rather large. Central Service Facility is a perfect example. I think it's important before we say yes or no, that perhaps as a board, we take a tour of the facility. I know Kate was trying to organize that a year or so ago, so before we, put a hold or go gangbusters, perhaps we set a dollar threshold and say, as a board, we'll make sure we go out and take a look ourselves. Also, your pool repairs, I'm sure you're doing this, but I'm sure that when we have these major pool repairs, that you're aligning it with our usage. So let's say you have 2 pools that both need equal repairs, that you're kind of taking a look at the usage of that. You said something that kind of raised a flag up. And by the way, this is awesome. I can't tell you what an improvement this is over previous stuff. But you said positive variances will go back to the RRF fund. And I think there's a way that we've got to be tracking that and incorporating kind of like surplus cash. We've got a little bit over here, which we put in the operating fund. Over time, that could build up, and we won't be able to figure out, is our reserve fund adequately funded, overfunded, can happen. And then we're in the process, will your internal control flags shoot up when there's overspent? How quickly would you become aware that we are really kind of veering off? Is it a percentage amount? Is it a dollar amount?
It's what we have in in terms of the red flag ability is just not necessarily on this sheet, it's in the rest of this workbook, what we have as our capital workbook. Every project has a cash flow sheet. So we know what the budget is, we know what purchase orders are identified for that project, and the goal is to make sure that purchase orders don't exceed budget. That's the primary sort of first checkpoint. And if we know at the beginning of the project, if our vendors come into us and say, this is going to cost you more than what we have budgeted, then that gives us that first opportunity before we start a project to say, okay, we either need to figure out a way to adjust if it's a minor increase or if it's significant enough. Through Kate, we come to the board and ask for that approval before we move forward. And most of the projects, the way they're set is we don't necessarily pay until the work is done. That helps. The other, especially for larger projects, because I think the track you're on is if we have a large multi-year project, we're usually paying by the month. Those could get out of hand. However, that's why the procurement process and make sure that we have strong contracts that strictly limit funds and the deliverables that we expect is important up front, and that we enforce to that. And we really force our vendors to stay on target. So if we know that the financial percent and the physical percent aren't matching up, that's the first flag for us to at least be able to check in and identify early on, if one's not matching, especially when financial percent is ahead of the physical projects. That for me, that's a first red flag. Is a concern for us to have that dialogue to figure out how we can get back on track, or if we're trending in the wrong direction.
So monthly?
Monthly,
Just looking for like.
for those
is
projects,
this like the reports you
it would
just
be
follow?
monthly.
Monthly,
Yeah.
okay. I
but
have to
probably
take-
on the project manager side, it's more on a daily or weekly basis.
Can I follow up on that
Yeah.
question real quick? Our precedent terms that we're coming to create, are they going to include some sort of clause that requires our vendors to notify us when we've hit, say, 90% of spend or whatever that benchmark might be, so that we have a secondary check?
Yeah.
And okay.
No, I'm thrilled you're here. I was everything I've seen is great, and the internal controls that you're implementing, I'm excited. I'm excited that they're auditable, Eventually, you'll have the chance to go back and audit them. Thank you for all your work.
So I would just say real quick, high level, because I'm high level. This is great, except I like a light version. I even want to see less numbers on my version because it just makes my head hurt. So
We've got one even smaller than this.
and I just need less numbers.
Yeah,
A big
less
sheet of paper
numbers.
with lots and less numbers. So Robert knows it already.
Sherry, do you just want this right there? That circle part summary?
Something like that.
That's all you want, right?
Something like that.
On target.
Or just the color, the blue.
We'll talk about it at a different time. But I would say that when you're looking at cataloging, I know we had talked about this at another event we were at, but is your category almost like starring on like needs work like now? You're kind of assessing to the best that we can where we are, because I think, I always look at reserve studies as a guideline, but if something's popping up and, a pool is getting ready to become a lake, or a lake is getting ready to become a pool, or however that would work, I mean, clearly that comes to the top of the list, even though in the reserve study it may be 2025. So I'm hoping, because, one thing you hear from the community a lot lately, and you said it when you started, is infrastructure. Our infrastructure is getting old, and people are concerned that they don't even necessarily understand reserve studies, but that do we have the money to take care of these things that are getting old? Because everything's getting old at the same rate, because when things were built around the same time, we're all in the same boat. So as we're working through all the different renovations, I would hope that we're putting safety first above anything else.
Yes.
Okay, that's all. I like the idea of doing the cataloging. I think that's awesome, especially the things we're sure, not sure are ours, like we just found out about the wheelie overpass in the last meeting. Julie, real quick.
You mentioned that on the reserve study coming up. In the past, I think we've done it more as, I'll call it piece parts, rather than thinking in terms of overall a complex or a facility. So is there going to be some combination that allows us to
There will
drill
be-
down into, we have this many drainage systems, this many light systems, but
Yeah, you will see a shift to facility assessment
focus? Okay.
and identifying all the assets within the facility, although we may still evaluate the pieces because there may be different components that have different life cycles, but still they'll be a part of one facility system.
Good.
So,
Golf course island? Pool? Is that a pool?
yes.
Don't say pool.
We'll make that adjustment before we put it on the website,
Just-
for that note on that page.
And my last question is, you mentioned the multi-year capital projects, which brought me to mind, one of the things we asked for in the last at least 2 years was to complete outstanding projects. So what I gather from here, and maybe I'm reading this wrong, is that we have completed anything that was there before 2016? Do we have any 2014, 2015 projects hanging over our heads?
There is one 2014 project, and that is the Hunters Woods Lighting project. That's on hold. That was initiated in 14. Besides that, on the multi-year list, most of those are 15 or 16 initiated.
Some of them I realize were planned to be multi-year, so, that makes sense. I just remembered that was kind of one of those sticking points that we had about, let's get finished what's on our plate before we start a whole lot new. So, and then when I was looking over at the completion, the Hook Road Battlefield, it says 100% completion. So that number wouldn't be reflected up above in any carry forward?
It's identified within the carry forward list. So the progress that's at least shown, 17%, part of that is the small portion of that project that was in 17. So most of that work was done
Was done.
in 16. There was maybe a $9,000 task left
How
this
hard
year.
would it be to add, like a date of completion or a month or a quarter?
Easy. You can do that.
That's it, thanks.
Sherry, one item that if I may, to share with the rest of the group. So in July, next week, the fiscal committee will be getting the 2018-19 list that we've put together. We're in the process of scoping, but they'll at least get to see kind of what we're looking at in terms of projects, as well as the 5 years Garrett indicated. On August the 7th is when the board will be presented with all of that information, because the scoping at that point will have been nearly completed. In July, what Garrett was indicating is the RRF funding amount that we need to do for the next 2 years. So we'll have a better idea of the 10-year look ahead and what we should be setting aside on those. So those are the kind of the order of business, but we want to scope out all those projects for 18-19 plus the laundry list of 5 year. So there are some new things that Garrett has seen popped up even just today that might adjust some things here and there that we're doing, but we just getting right to your point. It's not necessarily what's on the list in the reserve study, it's what we know by site visits and what's going on that needs to happen sooner rather than later.
And the 5-year plan will definitely help to really understand, is the reserve adequate? Because we can at least plan out the total spend.
Thank you.
Thank you, Garrett.
I'm opposed to the pool sliding into the lake.
You're opposed to
I
it? I'm thinking you just have a full lake.
I mean, I want to be clear about that.
Take a stand.
Don't want
I
that.
think it would be an opportunity to create a new slide.
If it happens pre-dredging, you might be
Yeah.
able to merge the two projects. Just,
All right,
there.
welcome.
Anyway.
Welcome, hello everybody.
Hi, Mike.
Hey,
I'm gonna
Mike.
pick this up a little bit.
Good.
We're gonna get outside.
From one of the newest departments to the oldest department, probably. We've evolved from a garage to what we are today, so keep that in mind as we progress forward. Okay. Overview and purpose: provide, operate, and maintain safe and attractive facilities, lands, and walks. Community buildings, roadways, ball fields, playgrounds, multi-purpose courts, pathways. Those are a lot of things we take care of every day. Environmental maintenance of natural areas, lakes, ponds, and streams, and maintenance and safety inspections of all facilities, all the assets that Garrett was speaking about. We inspect daily, quarterly, monthly, to make sure they are in good working order. And if they're not, we fix them. Our sub-departments over at the CSF. CSF is Essential Services Facility. It's our maintenance facility. The administration, we have the boatyard storage department. We have garden plots, lakes, natural areas of open space. We have a construction and pathway crew, recreation areas and grounds crew, and a community building crew. Okay, each one has different sub-crews, supervisors, as we get into our full-time people, and many seasonals. We definitely utilize a large amount of seasonals to work. The facilities we talk about, there's just a ton on here. And I don't want to overwhelm you. The numbers are big, though. It's not a little. We've got our facility, which is currently going to be renovated this year. We have the outdoor pools. You can see all the tennis courts, the 8 clay tennis courts, which I think somebody said are one of the few public clay tennis courts in the whole area. So, that aren't country club, which is very nice. They are very difficult to maintain, but very popular from what I understand. 55 miles of pathways, probably one of our most used assets. Underpasses, you can see the number of bridges, the lakes and dams, the acres of property that we look at, 800 acres of natural areas that we take care of, and the 55 managed meadows. There's just a ton on there. The picnic pavilions, playgrounds, ball fields, 5 community buildings, the nature center, nature house, and then you can see the numbers of picnic tables, trash cans that we have to pick up 3 times a week, the fighter dispensers of the doggy bags you guys may utilize, parking lots, recreational vehicle space, which is located adjacent to the Essential Services Facility, one of our largest money makers, which you will see in a second, and the garden plots that we take care of. Our department, yes ma'am.
Lake House?
In the community buildings?
It's in
Yeah.
there?
It's one of the community buildings.
Okay.
Yeah, we handle and treat just like any other community building. Our departmental focus, this year we're planning to oversee the renovation of the Central Services Facility. It's been 30-something years, and if you haven't been, you're all welcome to come and visit, but is in dire need of a makeover. The pedestrian improvement to emphasize pathway maintenance with a focus on overpasses and underpasses. That's Linda Thomas's department. We're focusing on the safe maintenance of all the pathways and the underpasses and overpasses as they're aging, and every time we get storms, as you guys have seen the last couple of years, they flood out and get very dangerous. So our pathways are probably our most used asset, I would think. There's no way for me to put a number on that, but they're very popular, as you know, especially with snowstorms. We know how popular they are. We're focusing on reducing invasives to improve the health of our natural areas. That's an ongoing fight. Develop a year-round maintenance standard and approach to improve ball field turf performance. We're trying to just improve our turf ball field. Ball fields are brutally overused. And with the season being like 11 months a year now, basically, it's hard to grow grass in January. The 1 month that they try to stay off. And so we're definitely coming up with some different performance measures to try to make it better. Enhanced curb appeal, our facilities to improve member experiences. We really started pushing on that last year. We've, our Sia Burton is working to improve, like, it's a general facility. We do have aging facilities. We have overgrown facilities, plants that were planted 30 years ago, and she's really doing her best to change those out, put all native plants in and give it a little pop, a little bit of color. And if you go by the lake house now and stuff, you can really see the pops come out. It's really, really nice. So it's very important, I think. Establish a standardized approach for facility inspections, playgrounds, top lots, community buildings, bridges, excuse me. All those things need to be inspected monthly, quarterly for safety. And if I go back to the slide, we have over 300 bridges. I mean, who'd have thought? I didn't. Okay, but some little wood ones, some covered ones. So it's very important that we get the safety with the inspections. Our department overview. 37 full-time employees and up to 26 seasonals. So we got a whole bunch of people done, especially now in the summer. Getting seasonals has become a bit of a challenge for us lately. A lot of the new generations don't want to work outside. I mean, there's better jobs, apparently, that they'd rather look at the Apple Store or something than jump on a mower. So we're having a bit of a challenge hiring that, but Melissa, we're working through every resource we can to get those things up. So we're short. We were short today, so.
You were out mowing today,
Yeah,
weren't
instead
you?
of working on my budget at 7:30, I was sitting on a mower mowing grass. Well, don't get me wrong, see, it's a blast, okay?
Okay, multitask, do both.
I would have, I did have my phone and see, I'm not gonna tell you that. I was safety first, but I was
Safety first.
reading emails, driving around the outfield around Chapel.
Work
But,
that spreadsheet.
yeah, it had to get done, so, and it's a blast. If you guys want to come down and chat, come on down. and-
Actually, at the end of last year, you look like you're gonna fall over at one of our board meetings.
Yeah.
You just come from the.
Look at that, yeah, we start at 7, we start at 7 o'clock, so, no, we're okay, it's fun, it's a blast. But we all pitch in, everybody will do that. Our 17 budget, you can see our general revenue and our expenses. We do bring in revenue, which I'll show you on the next slide. It's broken down, but we do spend a lot of money. Our primary variances are the revenue, the positive revenues, we sold a truck that we didn't think we were gonna sell. That's what that is. And the expenses is the pathway department, not being able to hire a seasonal and a transfer we had out of that department into another department. So that accounts for 32,000 positive variance. Here's a breakdown of our cost recovery. As you can see, just the highlights, the RV storage is a tremendous cash cow. It really is. It's very low revenue, expense, excuse me, and then high revenue. So that's a good way to do it. The garden plots, you can see. Question?
I love that chart. See,
Yeah.
that's an easy to understand, non-budgetary person can get that.
I would love to
like
take credit for
that.
that chart. Who did that? Anybody? No one's raising their hand? Okay, I did that. I had you-
While on the lawnmower today.
It
No.
started with Ms. Kowalski, you'll see more.
Yes.
So, yes.
But yeah, it is telling. It's very simple. It shows you the revenue that we take, and we do take in a decent amount of revenue. Mostly do the RV storage revenue. Okay. Preliminary budget recommendations is something we look forward to. We really like to increase our ball field crew, seasonal ball field crew. A lot of towns have them. Vienna's got them, Herman, Young, they've got crews just designated to go around and take care of the ball fields. I mean, really baby them. So I know the leagues have been a tremendous help to us. They're doing it, but we really need somebody out there every day, dragging, cutting, lining, doing stuff like that. It would be a great help for the sports teams. We'd like to increase our professional and technical in the natural areas department to work on finding a lot of the missing property corners. Little RA posts, I'm sure you've all seen them out that mark our boundaries. There's a lot of them missing, a lot of them are gone. And a lot of times we go out there and get a property dispute, and we have to hire a professional to come out and survey it and find the post. That's very expensive. So we've got people in-house who could do it, there's just too much to do. We'd like to increase our shrub and tree budget for the invasive screens removed. We're removing a lot of invasives, tree of heaven, Bradford pears, ivy, things like that. And then they've always served as a natural barrier and a buffer for people. And people see this big giant missing and they want something back. So we've got a very small budget to put things back. And it'd be very helpful if we could put more in there and it keeps people happy. Garden plot and open space violations, that's an ask for a little bit of administrative help in that area just to keep people up in the garden plots, which is another one of our very popular programs. A new tool, Linda or somebody would like we found that it's easier to hire full-time people instead of seasonals, so a lot of things we did with the grounds crew. Grounds crew used to have about 20 seasonals, now we've cut it down to about 10, and we've hired a couple more full-time people. Full-time people more vested, there's more to them. And they've picked up the slack. It's working pretty well. We still, however, the seasonals are very, very important to us. I mean, we are hot from March till October, and that's when we need our big time help. Rollout pads for the underpasses, again, a lot of the underpasses flood out every time. I'm not getting into detail on that. Tunnel and overpass restoration and cleaning, and like the Lily overpass, we found out, who knew? So it's ours, and so it needs to be cleaned and renovated. So we're looking at that. And the invasive removal program is something that's really gotten pretty intense. the public helps, they know what the invasives are, they've helped us, they point them out to us. We've got 30,000 watchdogs out there pointing out everything that's going, which is really, really important, helps us out. We're active down there, we appreciate the public's help, we get calls, our arborist crew is tremendous, we drop 400 or 500 trees a year, clean them up and stuff, thanks to the public letting us know, so there's a lot going on down there. It's very busy, we're very happy to be there, and I hope this gave you some, is that what I slide?
I
So,
rocked it.
any questions on what we do?
None of what you do, but what you could do. You think garden plots brought you in 606% return, I think. So can we expand the amount of garden plots?
We expanded GCI many years ago, added section, and we just expanded Cedar Ridge. We have a new one up there that we manage. And if we could, we need the property. We have to, most of the
The North Shore
garden
one.
plots are on the pipeline.
Yeah, the North Shore one though, there seems like there's space between it and
The North Shore, the GCI, the Golf Course Island.
I think it's over by the Unitarian Church, is that what you're referring to? That one?
no.
The one
So you are
I think she
talking
means
about across
GCI,
the golf course?
Island.
Yeah, golf course
North Shore
island.
Drive. Yeah, there is some open zone. We expanded that
You did, I know.
about
I'm just thinking there's
5-6
still,
years ago, I think, and added
there's still
more.
land there.
Currently, there's not a real, large waiting list, but if we had more, we could probably fill it. We have
So you don't
probably
have a
close to
waiting list in
300.
general for
We have
the.
close to 300 garden plots, and we bring in, I know it's just, they're very low maintenance. It doesn't bring in a tremendous amount, I think it was about $30,000, something like that.
Yeah, you
So
got,
the percentage is more
does
impressive
your
than the
budget
actual dollar
include
figure.
putting those higher fences up?
Yes.
Put that into your budget?
Yes, the 10
That's
foot.
in capital.
The 10-foot fence, yeah. And we're looking at that. Just theft is an issue.
How big a space do we need to set aside for garden plants? I was thinking about space down by the Colts Neck Tunnel that's being closed for the CEP assisted living facility to be built. It's a little teeny plot of land, but that might be a great place to program. I don't know, but I don't know if it's big enough.
Yes and no. Yes.
Because again,
space.
it's also on the,
Water, so.
I'm going to be delicate here.
Yes, you can. Be, please.
That's a tremendously popular place for people to hang out.
which is why I want to program it.
That's yes, that's one way to go, and people are afraid to go down there.
I live
Our
around the corner.
guys are afraid to go down
I
there.
live around the corner, I know.
And we go in there once a month and probably remove all the trash from the woods and the mattresses, which
Yeah, yeah.
they bring from the senior citizens home. When they throw them out, they drag them down there, and the furniture. Yeah, it could work. Whether people would really want to go down there, because those guys are hard to move.
Well, I'm just thinking once, if we can take it over.
Take
pull
over the
down people
space, yeah.
from-
You
pull
could
down
take
people from
back-
the
take
senior
back the
center-
space.
The senior
Yeah.
center. It's super close to that.
Right.
And they don't have land.
Yes,
It's
that's-
just an idea, but we
No,
probably.
it is an idea. It's not, we've night and day, we've gone over ways to try to put something productive down there and get the people to come in and move the other problem out.
You're just gonna be eating. Sorry, just.
It's pretty rough down there. Our folks are
I-
afraid to go down there.
Yeah, I know.
Definitely something we can talk more about.
Yeah, I want us to be able to
No,
do
no,
one.
it's
I
an
just
idea we
was
have
trying to
to
get
Yeah.
a space.
Yeah.
We're way behind time. You
Okay.
did a good job.
Okay, well, thank you.
You set a new standard, 5 minutes.
Well done.
Diana Stick.
Anna.
Suggest maybe we move with the breaks.
Ready.
Just a quick point, I don't know if everybody's got the email, but John Winnie's just emailed saying he's run out of minutes, so he's catch it.
Okay, good. Go for it, Ann. Yeah.
That's
Good evening, everyone. So, we're in Covenant's administration and been hearing about resident association property. Our department handles members' properties. So that's what we're going to talk about. So, overview, Covenant's administration and compliance, committee support. We support and collaborate with Design Review Board, Covenant's committee, and legal committee. We handle full administration, which is the preparation of the disclosure documents and community engagement and outreach. We do workshops and community service projects. Covenants compliance. For some reason, people don't seem to like that word, compliance and enforcement. So we like to think of our department as a department that preserves, nurtures, and guides people. We like to stay away from the word compliance and enforcement. It seems to like to do the warm and fuzzy for people. But actually, the end result for our department is to really protect and preserve properties for the benefit of all the properties in Westwood. So that's kind of what we like to think. So we advise property owners, and technically what that is to guide them through the processes that they have to go through in terms of design review applications, complaint processes, and things of that sort. Handle maintenance complaints, we do property inspections, we record and release notices of violations when necessary, coordinate with legal counsel on court cases if we have to file a judgment, and obviously maintain accurate records. So I mentioned earlier that we support and collaborate with the Design Review Board, Legal Committee, and Covenants Committee. So that includes producing agendas, putting together meeting packets, preparing and mailing notifications to homeowners, hearings. We inspect and photograph properties. We attend meetings. After each meeting, especially for hearings, we prepare and mail the decision letters, and obviously maintain the meeting minutes. Borough administration. Western Association complies with the requirements of the state law, so we prepare the disclosure documents. We have to comply with the 14-day deadline. So basically, the disclosure document process, we have to conduct property inspections, so that's part of the process. We maintain current information on the disclosure documents, which are sort of pieces of information that have to be audited and make sure that it's always current. And we issue the documents in the requested format, which there was a time when we used to get a combination of paper format, digital format. At this point, most people are requesting digital format. Community engagement and outreach. We do monthly workshops to train and educate homeowners. In June, for example, we have the legislative update workshop, which is probably one of our most attended workshops to see what's going on in the General Assembly. They like to get the updates on how it's going to affect all the community associations. The Western Expo, Helping Homes. For any of you that don't know what Helping Homes is, it's a service project that we implemented at the end of 2015 that assists homeowners that do not have the resources to do the exterior home repairs. We have partnered with contractors and vendors to put together this project, and we've had several projects that we've done to date. Probably put about $22,000 towards the project to help these homeowners. So department focus for 2017, some of the things we've been working on. We've re-implemented the cluster walkthrough process. This is something that we've done in the past, but not very successfully. We didn't have a very good process in place, so it used to be something that kind of started, not necessarily always got followed through. We started back this year with a very systematic process, so we now have a schedule. We are working in collaboration with the boards to get them scheduled. We have an actual process for the initial walkthrough, the rechecks, and the actual schedule, anything that needs to be escalated to Covenants Committee. In looking, assessing, and always determining the best way to use staff in the best way possible, we decided that we would dedicate a staff member solely for the processing of disclosure documents. In the past, it's always been divvied up amongst all the advisors, but I felt that that specific task needed to be delegated to one staff member, both for purposes of consistency in the inspection process, as well as By law, we have to deliver the disclosure documents in 14 days, but I always feel like we need to beat that deadline. Just because we have 14 days doesn't mean we couldn't deliver on the 10th day to just do a better job and, for customer service sakes. So that's proven to be a very good process so far. We kind of didn't anticipate that we would get more sales than anticipated, but at this point, that process has been probably a really good decision. So we're digitizing the cluster standards. If you're not aware of this process, I'm sure that you've probably heard about it. Up until now, the cluster standards were housed in binders in paper format. We decided that it was probably time to get into the 21st century and digitize the cluster standards. So they're now being done probably not as fast as we would like. It is a cumbersome process. There's 134 clusters. But as they're done, they're being uploaded on the website. It looks like a nice little bookshelf with the books, shown on the bookshelf. And it's now accessible by all the cluster boards and the cluster numbers. So it's efficiency for staff, but also accessibility to all the members. So it kind of serves multiple purposes. Court-ordered repairs for 23 properties. The board was kind enough last year when we were updating our 2017 budget to provide us with some additional funding to be able to go out and do repairs to the backlog of the properties that we had where judgments have been rendered on these properties, and we wanted to make sure that we could address this backlog because these properties are obviously of right to neighboring properties. And it was very important that we could get in front of these properties and get all these repairs done. So we're tackling all these properties before the end of 2017. Helping Homes program, which I just touched on. We have a couple projects already in the works for this summer. We just started a new department strategic plan for the 2017-2019 period, so everybody's excited about that. And written policies and procedures, which is high on our list, even though it's listed, it's not necessarily at the bottom because it's of less priority. But we've spent the last year identifying all these processes and policies that were sort of passed on from person to person over the years, and it's been a policy that somebody said, and people have been carrying it on because somebody said over time, but it wasn't necessarily pointed to maybe something in the deed or based on a resolution. So we've been doing all this research to make sure that the policy was substantiated by something legitimate. And most of them are, but I guess my big pet peeve is we need to make sure everything is legitimate, that it points to our governing documents. And so now that we've gone through that process, we want to make sure everything is in writing and that we have something documented and in an actual policy and procedures manual.
First, before we get off this, just a quick, digitizing cluster standards, is there kind of a sanity check to those as they become digitized? Some cluster palettes and stuff like that are very old and are really not replacing you. Speaking personally, my former cluster had a palette that was a line of painted Heckingers, and the paint had been discontinued, and Heckinger wasn't around for comment. And enforcing that was really just not possible. And so, is there, maybe someone can put a nose to that as that process happens to say, hey, this is one that at least ought to be cleaned up somehow.
Well, we really work very hard with the clusters to update their standards. One of the things that we've been trying to do as we go through this process is we use it as an incentive to get them to update their standards, because we had, 2 months ago, we had a workshop that is to help the clusters updating the cluster standards. That's the name of the workshop. And it's very well attended because a lot of times the clusters just are overwhelmed by the process of updating their standards and just kind of need to be guided along. You have clusters that are very engaged in the process and some of them that are just very not engaged. But so what we told them, this is what we're doing. We showed them the page on the website and everybody was oohing and eyeing, oh, wow, But so we said, and so they were all like, when are you going to do ours? When are you going to do ours? And so our response was, We don't want to put anything in digital format unless we know that your cluster standards are up to date. So come to us, work with us to update your standards, and then we'll put you in the forefront, because those are the ones that we're going to prioritize.
Right, it's the easy ones.
Yeah, so I think that's sort of like getting people more motivated to
Good.
do that.
Good, thank you.
That's the approach we use
Yep.
anyway. Seems to be working. Department overview, we have 14 full-time employees. In terms of revenues and expenses, we have one major variance, which is primarily due to revenues. It's just under 36,000. It's a positive variance due to the resale disclosure sales. We've seen an uptick in the first quarter in sales of the resale documents. We've seen more sales in the first quarter this year than we did last year. I can't say that that uptick is going to continue throughout the year. It's an unpredictable revenue, but so far we've had more sales, like I said, this year in the first quarter than we did last year. So that's our main variance. Could be because the weather was nice, or maybe interest rates are low. We don't have the real estate agents here.
Ray
and Eve
right?
provided, so.
That's right.
And when was the last time that we changed pricing on those documents?
There are grants every election.
The resale documents, the
Yep.
price is
That's
mandated
true.
by the statute, so we can't really change.
What, the Virginia statute?
Yeah, we're
So
limited.
we-
Anyhow.
Yeah.
Is there any other documents that you guys produce that are not mandated, that we have flexibility on?
We provide documents, the PUDs, which is the document that's provided for the title companies for when people are selling. And there's still a certain amount of money that you can charge for those. And unfortunately, what's happened over time is that banks have gotten used to the fact that there's a standard format that most community associations use, and that's what we've gone to, is that we post that standard format on the website. And then if they don't use that standard form, then they request a custom form, and then we'll charge for the custom form, because it means going outside of the standard form. We want to do a specific form with more answers and more information, and then we'll charge like $100 or $150 for that form.
Okay, just looking for.
More revenue, I know. I love to get more.
Under garden plots, it's the same question, but let's stay focused.
So, in terms of 2018 and 2019, and since you kind of bring that up, one of the things that most community associations provide that we haven't done today is the expedited approval process. So, in the statute, there is an opportunity to provide the expedited approval process. It's not a major revenue process, because that, again, by statute is capped. You can only charge $50. And you have to turn the disclosure documents around within 5 days. But because most community associations offer that, a lot of people, I shouldn't say a lot of people, I think 25% of the requests we get, people will say, we want the expedited, and we don't offer it. So I would say that if we did offer the process, we probably would get more like 50 to 75% of the requests, because I would say, based on many people that I talk to, if they ask for the expedited process, it's just because they procrastinated asking for the documents. But I'm putting that out there because we've been asking, we've been asked for that service, but we don't currently have the resources to prepare those and deliver them in that period of time.
If we did that, would we need to add staff?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a budget impact.
It's a lot of
Good, yeah.
$50.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot of $50.
And you'd have to be pushing that pretty hard.
Yeah, I mean, you have to do it so
Association grants
fast,
without your
and,
documents.
I mean, the $50 wouldn't pay for the person. That's kind of a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the next thing is the post-DRB approvals inspections. This is a task that we're not currently doing that technically should be done. When DRB projects are completed, staff should technically go out and inspect to make sure that the individual has, built the project in accordance with the approval. Again, we do not have enough staff to do all those inspections. In 2016, we processed just short of 2,000 applications. So if you keep that number in mind, that's a lot of extra inspections.
When you're going out and doing the cluster walkthroughs now, are you equipping your folks with a list of who has put in for a DRB application and gotten approval so that you know that you should look specifically for that?
We're not doing that. I think we could do that, but it would definitely slow down the cluster walkthrough process. So I think it just depends. I mean, we will see if there's something that's not, that doesn't comply. I mean, it will certainly stand out. It would be hard to add that to the cluster walkthrough process because I think what happened in the past with the cluster walkthrough process and why it didn't work is because the walkthrough process took so long. So I would hate to slow down that process. But right now what happens is that there are some, members that will call and say, I completed my project, will you come out and inspect? And in that event, we'll go out and do it. Technically, per the deed, that's what should be happening. I mean, the homeowner should be calling and saying, my project is complete. But that doesn't necessarily happen. I mean, it should be their responsibility, but how do you really enforce that? So, in all reality, we should be doing that. Again, that would be a staff add to do that.
Yeah.
Member access to property files. This is definitely what we envisioned when we added our SmartWebs software. Now that we've got SmartWebs to use as our database and we've digitized our files, we're now in the process of importing all the digitized files into SmartWebs so that they're housed in one place. The end result of all that was, our vision was that at some point we would give members access to view their property records. And so in order to do that, we would have to scope out what that cost would be. We would have to work with a website company to see, provide that portal so that they would have access to that. But that was sort of like the vision when we put all that together, is that members would have access to their property records.
How often do you get a request for such?
It's not an everyday request, but it is something that I think if people had that access, they would definitely use it. I feel they would definitely use it.
So if a member wants to see that now, they just have to come in to you.
Correct. Sabrina just said that. Matter of fact.
We shared it via flash drive though,
Yeah.
which was nice.
But some of the files are so large, right, that it's almost even hard to get on a flash drive.
Okay.
DRB related, work with the DRB to allow more staff approvals. This provides a lot of different things. It provides efficiency for staff, and it provides easier workflow because it allows staff to process applications faster, which in turn provides service to the members. Members obviously always want their application to be processed faster. There are also members that don't want to go to meetings, so they're always looking for that. Can we do a staff approval? Can we do a staff approval? And we have some guidelines that have tiered reviews where you have there's certain projects you can do without application, there are certain projects that you can do as staff approval, certain projects you can do it con review, and so on and so forth. And we currently have some guidelines that don't have that tier for staff approval. So we would like to have some edits done so that we do have that staff approval tier. The last item, updating design guidelines with the input from member focus groups, is an idea that I discussed with Julie, which I thought was an excellent idea. There are several guidelines that could use some editing, and we thought it would be an excellent idea. It's never been done before, but maybe holding some member focus groups to get input from the members to see how they might want to improve design guidelines or suggest any changes, because ultimately the design guidelines are for the community, so any input from them might only benefit the members of the community. So I think that's nice. Any questions?
I have a very quick question. Do you,
This is John. I've returned with a recharged phone.
Thanks, Chad.
Welcome back.
We're still here.
are you meeting current statutes with our current staffing? Are we meeting the laws and requirements that
Yes.
we require?
Yes, we're required to, so I would have to raise a red flag if we wanted to do that.
And then, just so the new people, new guys know, just 3 years ago, most of everything was in paper form. I mean, you had rooms full of documents. Has that been scanned and is that finished?
Yes.
So, okay, all the plots, everything
Nope.
is?
No, not all.
Just the candidates records.
Right.
Just covering records. What's the schedule for the plots? When is that scheduled?
That we will have to talk about. It's an internal project because that costs some additional dollars, and we'll be coming back with you on that.
What's the size of it? Is it still a room full of paper?
It's a lesser room full of paper.
Okay, thank you.
Just the
I would say about-
Oh, you need slide.
Yeah, I would say about 90% of that room is taken care of. So, and that room was the size of the conference, almost nearly the size of the entire conference center opened up, so.
Does anybody absolutely need a break? We can just keep on trucking.
Yeah.
I say individuals go out.
Melissa? I really, really, really want to get out on time. And-
We're gonna do
Our
our
best
best
here. Huh?
Lucinda just getting.
That's right. I've done.
Go, girl.
Okay. For those of you I haven't met, a couple of you, I'm Melissa Kelly, Director of HR and Admin Services. So I'm just really quickly going to run through this first slide, not going to be a surprise to any of you. Everything you typically see in HR is under my purview, along with interaction with the property manager for headquarters. So that's kind of where the admin services comes in, along with some burst admin support, which our HR coordinator provides for special projects. And so that's another thing under my purview. Focus for 2017, analyzing our current benefit offerings. We have started that deep dive with a conversation at the fiscal committee on 401k plan design and features. So we have a meeting next week with kind of a subcommittee, including Eric, on retirement plan. So we're going to have that meeting along with our outside plan advisor to do some more conversation and a deep dive on that 401k. Increased focus on wellness. We do have a internal wellness committee that keeps us very well focused on wellness. It's been very successful, particularly to our bottom line on increase to health insurance. We just recently had a walking challenge where people track their steps, submitted into HR. It gets people thinking and actively keeping it moving. So it's been great. The other thing that I have wanted to do is bring our vendors more into telling us exactly what we have existing and pushing and selling that internally. So example of that is Kaiser now does a health assessment online. You can take it online. If you have something within that health assessment that pops up, say you're a smoker, which is one that I'm particularly sensitive to, you can get a coach for free if you go through that health assessment. So that was news to a lot of people within a Kaiser seminar we brought in our rep. It was probably one of the most highly attended internal brown bags that we've hosted to date. So
Is that your whole plan, Kaiser?
yes. Yep. We're also working on implementing a common review date. I know Garrett pointed to having a positive variance because right now we're on anniversary schedule. We're moving everybody to January 1st, effective next year. We are also continuing the process of succession planning. So we identified and set aside potentials, but what does it really take for them to grow? So defining that with a little bit more precision is what we're working on now. And Anna also mentioned strategic planning. We're just wrapping up with Robert's group, so finance and IT. Just started covenants, next up communications, and then we'll get to capital projects, I promised Garrett. Our staffing makeup, so this gives you, we we have 101 full-time and 4 part-time budgeted staff members. Off to the right there, you'll see 38% of those are field or maintenance folks, 62 being professionals. So professionals are the people you're going to see more doing desk work or in the headquarters office. We hire 300 to 400 seasonals total each year, so that's your aquatics, camps, maintenance folks. Our rehire rate for 2016 was 66.9%. That's actually down from last year. A couple reasons that I see that we're having, one of which is I think it's terrific, is on the camp side. Dan Marinik has been much more closely watching who gets hired and rehired, performance measures. So I think that's actually good that it's down, quite honestly. The other thing we're seeing is a lot of the college folks, they're being required to do an internship now. So that's also dropping our rehire rate. So, and then Laura's going to touch on that a little bit more in her section. So I think the thing that I wanted to call out here, and I know Sherry, this will be a rehash for you, but we in the past have lumped these figures into salary and salary-related costs. So what I wanted to show you is what makes up that actual bucket of things. So for salaries and wages, you'll see the percentage and as well as the dollar figure. The regular full part-time, that's our year-round staff. Then you'll see a piece of the chart that is for our seasonal folks, our merit pool, overtime, and on-call. And I know this will be in Dropbox, so you don't have to memorize the numbers. Seasonal, it's the same sort of slice and look. So you get your percentage of the total makeup of the seasonal dollars along with the dollar amount off to the side in that table. So obviously aquatics are our biggest expense on the seasonal side, followed by maintenance, which Mike mentioned earlier. He actually dropped that figure and converted some of those people to full-time, which actually netted us some savings and we think is actually better efficiency with operations. Benefits, health insurance being the biggest piece of the pie at 41%. You'll see the dollar amounts off to the right on the table. Mandatory taxes, I have another pie chart that calls out what's in that, but it's typical federal. Social Security and Medicare, federal unemployment, state unemployment, workers' comp. This is another slice again that gives you a sense of on who's taking advantage of the healthcare. So whereas you saw on the previous slide that there was a lower percent of field and maintenance that actually makes up our total, but there are more people in field and maintenance that are enrolled in health insurance than on the professional side. So that's what that is. The one on the right gives you a cut by salary level. So over 60, between 50 and 60, and then under 50. I'm moving pretty fast. Does anybody need me to?
Go ahead.
Mandatory taxes, same thing. I think Kate said the other day, who is FICA and why do they keep taking their money? That's what that is. 81% of it.
Valid question.
Federal unemployment.
Federal unemployment and state unemployment. I have, did you need me to back up, Danielle?
No.
I have 3 full-time folks, including myself. I have an HR generalist and then an HR and admin services coordinator. Got 2 departments under my purview. 1,800 is purely HR, and then 1,900 has some components that have facility management, facility expense, and then also some other bigger projects that affect the company at large. So those are in 1,900, so it's an operations kind of pocket. 5,000 over on expenses. It's the merit timing again that's hit mostly for that. That was very quick. I hope if you have questions though, as you look at the pie charts, that you do let me know, because I'm
I have a quick question. The health insurance cost of the benefits was about $900,000, where the retirement was about $200,000 or $300,000. And I love that you set up a little group to study the retirement. Are there plans to do the same thing for health insurance? What's the timing of that?
Yes, ma'am. So we're going to bring the broker that we utilize right now for BB&T is going to come to the June fiscal meeting to talk about where we are, where we see it going. We do have a number of ideas on how to go ahead, including looking at the employee share, which I think is probably where we're headed. But the other thing that we want to be pretty mindful of, and I think you all would agree, we're not exactly sure what's going to happen with ACA. How that's going to change the players in the game, I don't think we know yet, so it is definitely something that we're looking at, though. The parts we can control, right? So to that end, looking at the monitoring for 18 and 19, looking at the repeal and replacement, how that's going to affect us. We are constantly looking at our onboarding process because we do have so many that come in through seasonals. Right now, we're using Access database to track paperwork. We have thoughts of trying to add the onboarding module to ADP, just looking at costing of that and whether it makes sense. The other thing we're trying to work on is social media presence for us. So in the past, because our rehire rate has been so strong, we haven't done a ton of work in that arena, but I think it's time to look at that a little more closely. And then evaluating, as I mentioned, the retirement plan, healthcare, and then looking at some potential new ways to look at the merit and bonus.
So if I could add to that, so one of the things I've asked Melissa and Kate, and I just asked them, we've been working on this for a little while now, looking at health benefits, retirement benefits, the merit system, all of it, the whole kit and caboodle, is actually to look at a professional employer organization that can do all that for you. They can come in at no cost and assess, and they can do benchmark of actual jobs, benchmarking those against the area or how we want to slice and dice it. But you know, we use one in our company. We're a much smaller company. We find it very valuable because they can do anything from payroll to 401k administration, benefits administration. They do it all. You know, all your compliance with all the different rules and everything. So I've asked Melissa if she would reach out to 2 different companies to do that kind of. They can do that in a short amount of time, under 30 days. I can get done. So any changes, we're looking at 118 to make some changes. So that might impact the 401k team.
Yeah, for sure.
Because just I want to see more options that we have. And, you know, when's the last time we priced or had your current broker price out? You know, what's in the market? When have we benchmarked it? Have we benchmarked our broker to see if our broker's actually giving us the best deal out there? So all that is on the table right now because it is, as we talked about last budget cycle, it is the biggest cost item that's out there. And so we're just looking at all options at this point. Melissa's been gracious in providing me all kinds of stuff. She's on speed dial number 2.
I mean, as a service organization, you expect that would be our highest cost.
Would.
But
when you
it's
bring it down,
proportionate
it's-
to the rest, I don't know.
And the benchmarking will show, are we in line?
Right,
exactly.
But I have the same question, when was the last time we looked at our broker? How long is that?
She's only been with us, I believe, 4 years. Not a long time that she's been on board, but I mean,
It's not 20.
no, it's not, but I mean, it doesn't mean it's not.
Exactly.
Not a mental. So.
Incumbent idea is people get very comfortable with the company that doesn't want to go out and make sure you're doing the best job you can for us. And people need to be aware that RA will shop the business if we need to.
I think that's your specialty.
And that's my specialty, so I love it. So bring it on. Robert.
Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa.
Melissa,
Yes.
this is John Mooney, and I couldn't hear exactly what Sherry said. She may have asked what I wanted to ask, but it is, how often do we benchmark salaries and benefits with other similarly situated organizations?
I actually do an annual benchmark, as well as our broker, looking, at a larger subset of folks within nonprofit and area. Does that help?
Okay, it does, and it's the beginning of an answer. I'm very interested in that because in my organizational experience, we did that frequently, and so we can talk more about it.
You bet.
Okay.
Okay, so you said I've got 25 minutes, right?
Well, look at all these slides.
Yeah, but that's my backup. All the questions I'm going to get.
You
Two
can
slides and 23
every
backups.
other slide.
Great. All right, finance and information technology, so that's me. All right, let's go through this a little bit. I've made a couple of notes on the overall slides here. So, finance, our finance team, what do we focus on? Obviously, accounting services through to all the departments behind me, through the best department. We focused on the biannual budget, which we're going through right now. Banking and investments. The big one is billings and collections. That's all our assessments. Internal controls and annual audit. So our annual audit is in the process of being wrapped up. We've had our auditors on site for a few weeks, and we should have that wrapped up in the next few weeks. So.
Let me see that internal controls one.
Yeah, and part of the next fiscal committee meeting, we've actually got a RFP in place. So Kate and I already, Kate reviewed it, I'll put it together. And we've got to have it at next fiscal committee meeting. Right, overview of IT. All right, hardware, software, kind of pretty obvious. Telephone, mobile device, and voice data systems. Maintain all that, help everybody stay connected and keep connected efficiently. Network installation, maintenance and support, internet, website connectivity, do a little bit of staff training where applicable, as well as our database administration.
Is all your stuff cloud-based?
No. Not everything. All right, department focus. I actually made a few notes of that. Department focus is right now on the finance side is develop procedural manuals for each of the four main areas: purchasing, capital projects, payroll, and revenue. So that's an internal project that's currently going on right now, and the plan is to use that and leverage that to overlay internal controls to that, and that's part of the RFP that's actually be reviewed by the fiscal committee this coming Monday. We also do internal training. I've given some internal training earlier this year on purchase orders. I think they went pretty well. I think the whole SLT team was there, as well as everybody that's related to the budget process. We've still got a few planned trainings. We've had another one we've had is our budget actual tracking, and this is how we track our budget internally from month to month. And eliminating as many of the timing differences as possible. Internal control basics, that's upcoming training, and then Garrett and I are going to present a capital versus operating training. So like really what falls within our capital, and what's the definition of capital and what's for operating. And then one I used to do a lot at Deloitte was work product review, and I'm going to give this to select folks in my department as well as anybody that's interested in that. And that's really making sure any work product that's actually given through to a supervisor gets a certain level of review. It's helped on all the projects that I've worked on through Deloitte and other consulting companies. Scope out an alternative to billings and collections, including additional forms of payment, and that's going to be presented to the fiscal committee in July for consideration. So we're looking at taking our billings and collections system, which is purpose-built, and we're more looking for an off-the-shelf package. I know Mark Werner is going to help out with some of that when we get to the second demos. So we've demoed three potential solutions, and 2 of them are still in the running, and we're going to at least try for another 1 and then pare it down to 2, take it to the fiscal committee, and then from that move over to the board.
Can I ask a question? At some point with the fiscal committee, it might be good to have a high-level discussion with, it seems like there's a lot of individual systems that are being implemented, and I'm wondering, at some point, can the discussion be made to make sure that perhaps everything is talking to each other, that we don't need all these individual standalone systems, silos? You might have already done that, but my impression is that there's all this stuff out here and it's not really talking, and perhaps there might be a more streamlined way to get things done.
That we can set up a time to go over our IT systems with finance, or with fiscal committee.
Yeah, sure.
Talk
Like
about
things are getting
finance.
done, but maybe there's an easier way for you and your staff.
Could do they integrate, I guess?
Yeah.
Systems.
Yeah, most of our systems do integrate, and
Yeah.
that's one of the things that we want to make sure of with our billings and collection system, that it does integrate with our current system, which our current one does.
Great.
So,
Very good.
and then one of the most important things there is continued cross-training. Cross-training in our department is key. I've made this major focus within the department, and the key to that is making sure somebody can do somebody else's job. If the person goes away for vacation for a week or two, if the person is on FMLA or decides to go and visit family overseas, whatever the case is, cross-training is key. So that is a major focus within our department.
Sherry just said nobody can go on vacation.
Really?
2 weeks.
That's my department, they work hard enough.
That's a new HR change, Melissa. Nobody can go on leave for 2 weeks.
Does
Only
that allow you
kidding.
to do,
Kind
to
of.
handle surges and workload too by that cross-training?
Exactly.
So we don't have to hire one more
Even with the
person?
baby.
Exactly, yeah. All right.
Is there, sorry, is there a security focus? What's our IT security? Are we looking at that closer than we have in the past, or is that, you're just assuming all wrapped up?
So that's kind of wrapped up in there. We do have our IT, some of our IT consultants that they do focus on security. We obviously have security in-house that our current IT manager looks at, as well as our two IT folks, two other IT folks. So yeah. I mean,
So we don't have any insurance problems with us holding so much PII and then any security loopholes?
One of the big things when we move to a new buildings and collection systems is to make sure that they're obviously PII compliant, which is one of the key. All right, let's carry on. So, let's take a look at some numbers. 11 full-time employees in finance and IT. The split there is 8 to finance, 3 to IT. The cost centers there are 1,200, which is our IT, 1,500, which is finance. Included in the numbers is Department 1,000, which is our assessments. So if you look at our revenues there, our assessments of that 15 million, 14.3 million is assessment focused. The other larger items on the revenue side is judgments, liens, demand letters, transfer fees, and finance charges. So the biggest of those other items is transfer fees of 240,000. That is the budgeted amount. Expenses there, that's obviously finance and IT. The split there, finance is 1.3 million, IT is 700,000. And currently the biggest variance we have to date is related to positive variance related to savings in legal costs on our buildings and collection side, as well as some savings on salaries and benefits, because not everybody actually partakes in our healthcare or our match. So that's where some of that variance comes.
On the legal part, is that, did we have a better than normal or better than expected year in assessments? Or have we just not got to the point where we're taking legal action?
It's a couple of things. I think one of the things that I've noticed is there is a lot less potentially going through to legal, a lot less time spent on legal.
That's because his staff's doing a good job.
Yes, exactly.
I assume so, yes.
We've got 2 people that focus on buildings and collections, and they've done a really good job at being very responsive and getting folks to not get upset that there's a potential additional charge if they're late, and really work with the people to try and not get them pushed to legal, because that is where a lot of funds will come into, but that's where we're going to save on the legal side. Now, there's obviously the better we get, the less potential revenue we'll end up getting on the top line there, because we will then have less judgments, less liens, less demand letters. So,
I'm okay with that.
yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah, I'm all right with that.
Your legal fees are included in the expense, right, to
Yeah.
capture that?
Yes, so the total legal expenses budgeted for the year right now is $250,000. I'm estimating right now we probably, if all goes to plan, come under budget on that by $30,000 to $40,000.
Thank you.
I have a question on your assessments. you can't really see it from this screen, but you can look at it when you have this great big thing here. Your year-to-date budget is let's say 4.5 million. So meaning from January to March, your first third quarter. But your annual budget is 14.3. Why is your annual budget lower? Well, I guess I'm revenue under 11,000 here. 1,000?
Yes?
I'm just wondering that, what I jumped to a conclusion is your year-to-date actual is 14.4 million, which is greater than your annual budget. So I thought, oh, you've collected 100% of your assessments. Is that a true statement?
No.
Okay.
So remember, accrual versus cash accounting.
Yep.
You got it?
Yep.
Okay. So when we send out all the assessments,
Right.
we send out the assessments and we basically invoice or assess people. So we've assessed the full amount of assessments, and we're budgeted to pretty much assess in the region of 14.3 million. So where you'll see a difference, if you see that now on next Monday, we can actually show what percentage of that is actually collected or has come in, and it's in the low 90s right now. But likewise, you'll see if we ran a cash accounting system, you wouldn't see accounts receivable or accounts payable in the balance sheet. So that's...
I understand. I think we need to have a side conversation about
maybe we
cash
do that.
accrual, what we're showing.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to. Any more questions? All right, we'll carry on. All right, so preliminary budget recommendations.
Poor Mike, he's like, all right.
Okay, don't worry.
Mike would like to brief this chart.
All right, so one of my goals coming into the position is, as a former consultant, consultants are pretty expensive. In general, consultants cost about 4 times the amount that you would have to pay somebody that is full-time staff. So for example, if it's a $100,000 salary as a full-time position, if you had a consultant, effectively 2,080 hours, you're going to pay in the region of about $400,000 for that. So rely less on consultants for routine operations. That's a major focus there. Of the $700,000 in IT expenses or IT budget, there's about $303,000 that are purely focused on consultants. So my plan is to definitely rein that in as much as possible. And that's going to the second point. Train staff to absorb consultant activities where possible. We shouldn't be relying on consultants for day-to-day operations. We need to bring that in-house by training up staff and spending some money on training and getting that knowledge in-house. And then another thing is to centralize overhead purchasing to meet overall for all the departments, administrative fees, looking at how we leverage bulk discounts for the particular departments. For example, cell phones and supplies. Some of the departments are doing kind of their own thing for cell phones, and I think everybody's very cost conscious, so we've now got together as a organization and focused on, let's see how we can leverage our RA purchasing power. All right. Any questions?
Thanks, Ryan.
Mine too. Good job. Cool.
It's like, get out of the chair, man.
Yeah.
Gotta keep everybody moving, right?
Right.
Good evening. So I'm here to talk about communications and community engagement. So this department is actually set up with 2 different teams. The first is the traditional communications team, and the second part of the community engagement team is member services, which you interact with at the front counter. In both cases, both teams are really responsible for communicating key RA messages, whether it's to members as our audience, the media as our audience, community partners. In all cases, both of the teams are responsible for delivering messages to key publics. They both have branding and marketing support. They are responsible for promoting our products and services They are actually in the role of building and strengthening our stakeholder relationships. So it's whether it's interacting with you as a board on things that you need, or whether it's working with our internal business partners to promote products and services. Their job is really around developing key relationships. They manage a small part of our communications team manages our volunteer engagement and management. So if you attended the volunteer service awards we had a couple weeks ago, Sherry mentioned that we have over 1,300 community volunteers. Combination of individuals that volunteer, corporate partners. So that's a significant amount of management time it takes to facilitate volunteer management. General member engagement and satisfaction. So our regular member services team are interacting. They're really our face-to-face contact with our members at any point in time. And their role really is to ensure that they're delivering high-quality customer service at all points of contact, whether it's by phone, whether it's by email, or whether it's face-to-face when an individual member comes in and interacts over the counter. So for 2017, our focus really has been to transition the department from what was historically a communications function. So if you look at kind of past history with RA, the communications team was really focused more on developing tactical communications pieces. So if Parks and Recreations needed a flyer to promote an event, or we had a Bike to Work event coming up, they'd prepare a flyer and they'd get it out. They would work in partnership with Kate on a strategic communications piece that needed to happen. But it was very focused communications, the publications, RA News. Over the past year and a half or so since I've come to RA, we've really started to evolve that team to really be more of an integrated community marketing, communications and marketing function. So that the role isn't just to deliver tactical pieces of collateral material when a department needs it, but it's really sitting down and being much more consultative with our business partners. And I know Laura will talk a little bit about this in her presentation, but our role is to really help our partners develop and implement a marketing campaign, not just the physical pieces, but to really sit down and talk about, okay, what's your goal? What are you trying to accomplish? And are the traditional ways that we've been marketing or communicating, a flyer, an article in a magazine, is that the best way to communicate or market what we need to be doing? With the goal really of focusing around how can we drive and increase non-assessment revenue. So that's promoting Parks and Recs programs and activities and trying to drive that revenue, promoting and marketing the conference center, the lake house, and really focusing on those non-assessment pieces. We've developed we're implementing a comprehensive program to sell advertising space in our digital and print publications. So far, really over the last year, we've significantly increased revenue as it relates to RA's Reston Magazine. We've started selling our newsletter. We're looking at opportunities where we can, again, drive non-assessment revenue through whether it's a digital function like RA News or whether it's a print function like Reston Magazine. And then another key focus for this year, and I know Laura will talk about the WebTrack piece, but along with the implementation of WebTrack from a platform standpoint, we also needed to take a step back and look at how are we communicating information today to members. And as you probably know, really, the second half of Reston Magazine really is our activities and program guide. So members sit down and do their planning, what programs they want to register their kids for, what camps, by using that magazine. So now we have a unique opportunity to realign what that section looks like so that it works in tandem with WebTrack. So we've really been focused on that. It's still an evolutionary process. We made some changes for the second quarter issue. We're doing things a little bit different for third quarter, and that's based on feedback we're hearing from staff as well as members on things that we can tweak to make them work together a little better. Overall, we support RA's strategic plan by developing and maintaining the brand. We are the brand managers. Everything we send out, we need to make sure is consistent in look and feel. And we've been evolving our collateral pieces so that they have a fresher look over the last few years. As I mentioned earlier, over 1,300 volunteers. We're really focused this year on ensuring that we're recognizing volunteers for their service to the organization. And really, this year's Volunteer Service Awards was the first time we really took that to a completely new level. Because our volunteers, when we look at the value of their labor time, over $600,000 in labor value in 2016 from our volunteers. And the same thing with expanding our community partner program, continuing to build relationships with organizations and corporations in Reston to continue to enhance our volunteers. Continue to strengthen and expand our media relations efforts. I think we've been very successful really over the last 12 months building entirely new relationships with Reston Now, Reston Connections, and the Fairfax Times. For the first time, at least in the few years I've been here, we have editors at all of those publications that are willing to work with us. And it's been a good, I think, give and take relationship. So now that media management, we need to continue that relationship. We've also been focused on the member services side, the implementing of the WebTrack pieces as it relates to the rollout of our new Forever pool and tennis passes. So we are going through the first season of the new passes, and there's been some hiccups as we move through that process, but by and large, it's gone smoothly. The real test will be over the next couple of weeks as we approach Memorial Day weekend and we start cranking up the heat this week. Expect we'll have some lines out the door, undoubtedly, but the nice thing is this will probably be the 1 year where we'll have that spike, because after this year, members will have passes that are renewable every year, so they won't have to wait in line like past years. The member services team has also implemented the online applications for booking coffee center space, lake house space, our pavilions and glade room. So in the past, that's all been manual. A member would either call member services or send an email requesting a pavilion rental for the summer or rental of a community building. Now members can actually go online and look at the inventory and availability and work with member services that way. So it's much more efficient for members to do it. And then ultimately, their role is to really serve as the help desk and really be there to support our members with any interaction or touch point they
So Mike, I
have.
assume with all that power, there's a reporting package in there, so we can get reports on usage and types of, for all those different things.
WebTrack? Yeah, and
They're
that's
learning the
nice
reporting
thing.
system now.
Okay.
Yeah, and for the very first time, we really have those features that we've never had before. That's just a quick snapshot of the communications tools that we use. Clearly, our social media, we're on Facebook, Twitter, we use YouTube for streaming our meetings. We've started dabbling with Instagram. The younger audience likes the Instagram thing, so we're doing a little bit more with that. You're familiar with the fact that we push out RA News every Friday. It's more of our newsy piece. We also have Reston Magazine. The Walker Nature Center works with our team, and we produce Branching Out, which is more an environmental ed newsletter, and of course we manage the website. And then we're going to start moving into it in the fall, and we're working with Parks and Recreations, but we're going to launch something similar to RA News, but much more focused on activities and programs, so that members can actually get a sense of, in the next 2 weeks or the next month, these programs and events are coming up, which will also be a way for us to drive some registrations for some that might be a little lower, and maybe the members didn't look at it on WebTrack or in the magazine. We're going to kind of heighten the visibility with a separate digital newsletter for events and activities.
Mike, I have a quick question for you.
Sure.
You have access to a lot of email addresses, not every member's email address, but a lot. Can we marry this with the notification process that's required whenever we go out, for example, to do construction at a site, or to notify people that there's a, let's with the St. John's Woods, where we're
Yeah.
going to be doing soccer field. Before, we've always said we can only do it with mail, but I can imagine you probably have a 50% hit rate that somehow you can use
So-
a computer to just shoot that out.
So the answer
You're
is.
using both.
So the answer is some of the time, yes and no. And it really, it's an issue that we're having conversations with internally because our current RIA system, you have to remember that back in the early days when a lot of members' accounts were set up, we didn't require them. Maybe didn't even have an email address, or number two, we never required it. So for all the same reasons why organizations are always asking for your email address, we need to be doing more of that. Now, one of the nice things is with WebTrack, as members set up new household accounts for WebTrack, we're getting their email addresses. So that's going to be a good, fresh database. And I think at this point, we're up to about 4,500 or 5,000 household accounts in WebTrack. That will be a good database for us to use. We have other databases like RA News, which we send out, which is roughly another 4,000 emails. Now, there's probably crossover between the two, but the long and the short of it is we don't have one central database right now that probably captures 100% of our members' email addresses, but it's something that we're definitely looking.
We also have a legal requirement though too. We have to ask people if we can send them certain things. There are some that we can get through Parks and Rec is fine, but to send out notification about things that are happening,
Yeah.
we're required by the Commonwealth to get their permission. We work on that through the election process. So when you go and you vote online, you know, you can choose what you want to receive. Because if we send something to someone that they, you know, and they said no, it could be assessment, it could be a decision letter on covenants, or whatever the case might be, notification that we're going to be doing a capital project someplace, and they say that's not where I wanted you to send it to, I didn't give you permission, we've got to have a check and balance system on it. So we're trying to use both ways when we're notifying people in whatever way we can, either through cluster mailing lists or whatever we have. But for Mike and Laura's purposes, we do have an audience that's captured in the different programmings and different programs that they participate in. So we can push information out from a recreation standpoint from that, because they've kind of, in essence, given us permission to do it that way. But Mike is right, we are busy marrying up some of these lists, and there are some unique requirements for community associations that we have to fulfill on the different notifications that we send out.
I would just think there, maybe the board needs to discuss, do we want to focus on this, given the feedback we got pretty quickly about the soccer situation and other situations? It seems like a good opportunity not to.
We have a new plan. I think Garrett's going to be presenting a new plan for communication on and different methods on that to address that.
The department overview, 9 full-time employees, 6 of which are on the communication side, 3 full-time in member services. And again, the 6 in communications, 2 of which are our layout and design people, so they do all our graphics work. We've got myself, one communications manager who really helps us with copywriting for news releases, but also his other half job is really handling all the content management for the website. And then we have, many of you know Hot Rock, who's our volunteer services manager. So she's on the team, and then Sean Bromby, who's our media manager. So photos, videos, social media, all fall in Sean's responsibility. We have 1 part-time, and that is in member services, 50% time employee. And then we use a total of 13 seasonal, the bulk of which are in member services, and I'll talk a little bit about that. And we have 1 seasonal on the communications team side, and that individual supports HAR on volunteer services. So when we get to our peak seasons like spring, summer, and then into the fall, we bring on a seasonal to support HAR with all the volunteer management pieces. We found that on the member services side, having the flexibility of seasonal help has really helped us, because clearly this times of the year, assessments when they come out in the late fall and into that sort of January, February, March timeframe, we have a spike in traffic in member services, so there's a need for extra staffing. This time of the year, with pool passes, pool and tennis passes, there's a huge spike again. And then they're managing not only front counter interaction, but as we do rentals at the lake house, The member services staff, we don't rent the lake house without having somebody from staff there at all times. So they're either showing and marketing the lake house to potential renters or also being there as almost like a facilities coordinator when the lake house is being used. So
Same thing for this facility as well, too, so the conference
Right.
center is another
yeah,
space that
and
they
the
manage.
conference center as well. So having that flexibility works for us. We can spread that staffing around more easily. On the revenue side, we are ahead of budget on revenues, primarily because we are having a good year so far for conference center rentals, and have no reason to believe that trend won't continue this year. I will tell you that we do a lot of marketing, working with the chamber and others to really kind of keep our profile up there, so that we're, especially on the corporate side, getting some significant corporate rentals in the daytime. That's helping us. And then we have seen increase in our advertising revenue in the magazine as well. Looking out at 2018 and 19, one of the key things I think we need to look at is what it will take to improve the audio here in the conference center, in particular for when we're doing live meetings. So you all have experienced the feedback issues when we're having board meetings. You have to remember that when our conference center was designed, it was originally designed for just in-room meetings. So the speakers in the room were really for the benefit of the audience in the conference center. Now that we're live streaming meetings and doing more broadcasting of meetings, we're having challenges kind of creating a balance in the audio levels between what sounds good to the viewer at home and what sounds good when you're in the room. And I know that at times you're straining to hear, especially if somebody's sitting in the back of the room, it's very difficult to hear the audio. So that's something that we need to really look at and get some estimates to see what it will cost on the capital side to do some audio enhancements here in the conference center. We're going to continue to look at utilizing paid advertising to market RA programs and rentals. That's something we looked at this year for the first time, a pilot, and we're just kind of starting that. But ideally, all of our promotion, all of our marketing that we traditionally do is all free. So we look at flyers, we look at every sort of internal marketing channel we have available to us that doesn't cost us anything. Works fine for reaching members, but when we want to reach outside of the borders of our members, for example, non-member pool and tennis passes, or any other, the marketing and promotion of any of our other programs outside of our member base, we really don't have a way to reach them. We don't have a database that extends outside of our members, so we really need to look at, are there opportunities to do some paid advertising to, again, look at driving more non-assessment revenue around our programs and rentals. So again, focusing on growing non-assessment revenue. We're going to continue to look at how do we narrow the gap between the ad revenue that we're generating from Reston Magazine and what our production costs are on the magazine. We've started moving the needle on that year over year and want to continue to look at where we can kind of squash that a little bit. Also bearing in mind, along with the ad revenue, the magazine really does serve some other functions. Again, it markets and promotes all of our programs and services on the back half. So if the magazine weren't there, we'd still have to look for ways to advertise our programs. It's a branding tool in the community, and we know realtors use it when they're out selling Reston. And last but not least, I don't know if you look at it, the last few pages in the back of the magazine, all of the board's actions memorialized in there. So every quarter, all the board's actions get printed there, and that, I believe, is a POA requirement, right? That we have to know, we have to have a mechanism of sharing board's actions with our members. So along with trying to find a way to continue to increase the ad revenue and reduce the production costs, there's more value in the magazine as well. And then lastly, we're going through a process of evaluating our print expenses to see where we can identify ways to replace some of the print things with some digital opportunities. So for example, you know, again, our flyer is always the right thing for us. Does that make sense? Would we be better off looking at a digital ad campaign, which one would make us a little bit more green and sustainable as an organization, but it would begin to drive down that print production cost. So that's another area that we're looking at.
Some of the things that are POA requirements and stuff, do they have to be printed, or can they, has that all been updated to allow an e-publication?
If the member so chooses, yes, like.
Right. But I mean, if we sent them, you know, the Preston magazine were available in digital form, they sought to opt in and the same mechanism?
And I know that one year we looked at whether or not you could choose not to deliver the magazine. Like some people have said, I don't want to get the magazine, I just toss it. But from a postal service cost, it costs more to.
And it's a double-edged sword too, because one of the interesting things from an advertising perspective, what makes our magazine attractive is we mail it, right? It drops at a door. And when you look at some of the other publications in the community that sit on a, you know, in a retail establishment and you have to take it, you know, advertisers don't like that, right? They want to know they're going to a guaranteed address. So for us, we drive more value out of a mailed magazine.
We looked at maybe taking out some of the pages to the next postage level down, shrinking it.
So we are looking at, as part of the redesign, we're working with Laura, Steve on this. The part of the magazine that tends to grow, because we have more programs and activities, is that back section. So part of the process of redesigning that, we're looking at how can we reduce some of those pages. It doesn't necessarily have to be a catalog of, you know, 100 different types of tennis lessons. We could maybe just tee up some of them and some highlights and then direct the member to WebTrack to get the specific sections that are available. So we're looking at some ways to do that as well, and reduce some of the other copy sections. So yeah.
One other question before we're looking at improving this space.
Page limit.
Do you have any?
Read more.
Anyway.
That's what we'll need to negotiate for, when we negotiate the space in here. We don't have any T&I
You don't have any
left.
T&I
No,
now?
we used it to get in here, so. T&I meaning tenant improvement allowance.
Thank you.
Did you want to take a break or keep going?
Nope.
Keep going.
Do you mind if I stand, because I promise I'll talk faster?
And by the way, you can stand on your head if you need to.
Okay, I'll do it. Okay. All right, well, thanks for having me. So I'm going to talk about, just as the other directors did, about the 2017 and where recreation services and environmental education is. But then I'm also going to take a deeper dive and then show you all 2016 actuals for the course of the year.
What's your budget? Full revenue, aquatics revenue is on budget. First time in like years. It's great. That's good.
You're giving away your stars.
No, it's here.
I'm okay with that. Okay, so let's talk about the purpose of the department. A lot of people do ask us, why does a homeowners association have a Parks and Recreation department at all? Why do you do what you do? And the short answer is, it's in the deed and it's in the bylaws. You can see that in the deed, it states that we approve and maintain property in good order, and those recreation facilities and common area are intended for the primary benefit of members' use. Then in the bylaws, it states that we have recreation facilities and we are to foster the fullest usage of our lands in those facilities and have established programs. Our programs are offered at our own facilities. They're also offered at other off-site locations, like in the schools for environmental education programs. Reston is a very recreation-intensive activity, so I skipped the little activity I was going to have you do to wake you up after 10 minutes, so we'll do that another time. But thinking about yourselves and what you do, do you use the facilities yourselves? That includes the pathways, and that includes, you're walking by tennis courts, you do get a benefit from all of those things. So the sub-departments within my department are listed here: aquatics camps, community events, lake house, Parks and Rec, administration, tennis, and then the Walker Nature Center. So the focus for our department, we have a strategic plan. We're in the final year of that strategic plan. So we've accomplished a lot of things within that strategic plan, and then we're going to be moving into the next one, I think, in the fall. So we underwent a needs assessment with the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee and George Mason University. We also did some small things, realigning our evaluations across departments to ensure we were capturing what we needed to. Facility enhancements, Lake House was one of those. We also took a look at, with our capital department and with Mike, having program team walk around with maintenance staff. A lot of times the facilities are maintained or operated, or maintained or upgraded in other organizations, and no one consulted the programmers who know what the requests are from the members. So that was one piece that we did there. Health and wellness was an expansion of health and wellness offerings, so yoga, mindful meditation, and others. Year-round recreation, we realigned our department with some of our staff, so we're able to offer some additional year-round programming that we weren't before. And Lake House provided a location, as well as taking some of the other community buildings that were just rentals and offering programs within those. Collaboration, Robert talked about bulk purchasing, and we collaborated. The biggest project this year was RecTrack, so that really hit every single department. So that's a major, and we'll continue to focus on that through the end of this year, and then also when we revisit RecTrack and say, okay, it's implemented now, let's take a look where we can have some improvements. Sharing our story, we work with Mike's team, articles in the magazine, and then also just good field stories about scholarships, and we have staff that came through the ranks with scholarships that are now employees. So just sharing our story and what we do. We're in alignment with your strategic plan through optimizing member experience. A couple of those would be the aquatics department has a Safe, Clean, Friendly, Fun initiative, and also with RecTrack, leveraging technology, and then there's also a smaller program, Tennis Scores, that we implemented. All right, so our department overview. We have 19 full-time employees, 3 part-time, 286 seasonals, which equates to about 33 FTEs across all those cost centers there. And then, so for 2017, where we are, you can see our annual, I won't read all those numbers. There's a variance of $36,000, and that's primarily due to not bringing in as many after-school program participants, and then some community rentals as well year to date. The positive variance in the expense also is a result of that. So if we didn't offer the program, we didn't spend the dollars on the program, and there are a few dollars within the aquatics and tennis related to projects that we will see spent. One thing I do really want to note here is that my department was not anticipating operating Lake House and any of the programs and events until 2017. So we did the best we could in a very short period of time to get programs and events in. So we'll see a much different story coming in the upcoming years.
So when we look at these numbers, like in your expenses, so tennis looks like 447,000. What did we actually, what is that number?
I'm going to get to all those.
Okay.
I promise.
All right.
After the screen. Okay, so now I'm going to get into the individual departments. First talk about a fee versus free, what we do, and then the existence cost and what that means for each department. Talk about our benchmarking practice, our overall cost recovery, and then taking a look at some recommendations. So all of our programs and events can basically fall into 2 different categories. One is a pay to play, so that's where we charge a fee, and the fee is charged for both members and non-members, paid to participate, and those registration fees cover the cost of that program. Sometimes there are concessions built in as well. So examples that are familiar to you would be swimming and tennis lessons, camps, tennis leagues, one-time events and programs, pirate party, all the little one-time events. Then on the other side, we have the free or the community spirit, and I can add an environmental education piece to this too. But this is where the members participate for free. The program costs are supported by the annual assessment. So examples of those are the community cookouts, ice cream social, senior movie day, our contribution to multicultural festival. Nature House has a holiday open house. Those are free and supported by the assessment.
So when you said that purple box on the pay to play, direct program costs are covered full or in part. How many of our programs are actually, the cost covers the program?
I'm gonna go into each department and you'll see.
Girl, I'm just leaving
I know, it's
slide.
good, it's good. I'll show you which ones do and what doesn't, yes. So I will note, all of our program areas have a combination of pay to play and then also some of those that are free. Okay, that's the first concept. Here's the second. This is the existence cost. So an existence costs are very different from the program and event fees. RA incurs this regardless of any program or event revenue that comes in. There's a cost for these facilities just to exist, to own them, operate them, maintain them. You can see that the staff, utilities, facility maintenance, and capital repairs are that expense. And to sort of tip the scale back, the best thing to think about here is for aquatics and for tennis. So that access fee, the pool and tennis passes, that provides revenue back to those facilities. And then you have the rental. Did you see that? I didn't do that.
That's
Sabrina
very
did that.
Very slick.
So then you add on the rentals and programs, and the revenue from those go to offset the existence cost as well.
Laura, a quick question, your existing cost, it doesn't look like all of those existence costs are in your budget. Are some of them in the parts of the maintenance area? So for example, staff is going to be in your budget area.
So the staff for the existence cost would be maintenance. So thinking of a tennis court, we have maintenance staff specifically designated for tennis. There's also the court monitor, that would be the lifeguards at the pool. So if, for those pools to just be there and be in operation, those staff components are included there.
I'll ask you, it's a different.
Capital repairs are going to be cashed in the capital budget, so you're not going to see that in this piece here. This is just operating on that. That would
And
be a
your
differentiator.
tennis maintenance guy who repairs the courts is going to be in your maintenance areas, not going to flow necessarily in rec services this evening.
That staff does live in 4300,
Okay.
that cost center.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Okay, so that's a total
Mike
cost.
supervises them. That's a we share a lot.
Okay.
We share.
That's interesting.
Okay.
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 Good question, Danielle.
Okay, so now we're into each one of the different program areas. There'll be a quick slide about each department, then we'll go into the existence cost, and then also the programs and revenue. So for aquatics, I talked about the number of facilities. I do have to boast that we have a 50-meter Olympic pool, and we also have 2 heated pools that opened last weekend. Though it was very chilly. They still open. North Shore and Rich Heights, and then our season here is longer than most homeowners associations. So we opened, as I said last week, and most will not open until Memorial Day, and then we're open late through into September. Annual open swim visits between 150 and 170,000 visits. Now this is just open swim, so this does not include any of the daycares that come through, the swim team that comes through. This is just when you walk in and hand your pass, sign in, and just open hours. Last year, 2,200 pool and tennis passes were sold. That's both member and non-member programs. About 1,100 participants annually. Our classes for certification are open to the public, parties, dog swim, all those things. Approximately 1,000 hours is for rental time to the local daycares. And I can tell you that moving into this year, we are seeing an increase in the daycare center rentals because we have available time that we couldn't offer them before. Okay, existence cost. So remember, this is just to have the facility open. We have the staff, the maintenance, utilities, chemicals, paying for the pool and tennis passes. Well, look at that.
I changed it like 3 times. The number 8 is supposed to be up up there, not hanging out by itself.
So in the red, the existence cost is $1,458,248, And you can see that the sale of the pool and tennis passes, that scale, covers a little over $500,000. And then what's supported, the remainder is supported by the assessment. Next, you add in the programs and rentals. So a listing of all the programs above the rentals, we do pool parties, daycares, and swim team. So you can see here that the expense in red is $175,000, and then they do have a net profitability of $4,900, and that's what goes back to the operating costs. So to answer your question, Sherry, for aquatics, that a majority of the programs cover their cost in aquatics. There may be a couple that don't, but that's taken care of. All of those community spirit programs are taken care of through the dollars taken in from those pay-to-play programs.
So the slide back where you had 1.4, is that based on the school, the aquatic schedule of 2016?
Yes.
So that number could change based on number of times we have the pool open, that number will change. Okay. I'm learning more about pools than I ever.
I know. Laura, are there any for the pools?
Yes.
I know with camps, we give scholarships so that we, a certain number of kids. How about swim lessons?
Yes.
Things like that.
One of my second to last slides is on
Oh,
scholarships,
awesome.
so I'll put it there too. Okay. So on to tennis, 52 courts. I talked about those. Same number of pool and tennis passes sold, though tennis does have a tennis only option for non-residents, so it's very small. It's just 154 passes, but you have to have a pool and tennis pass in order to play in the league, and that is a majority of those tennis only passes there. 1,300 registrants for junior lessons, adult classes, private lessons, and then the leagues are about 400 people. And they do have rental time to local schools. And USTA Mid-Atlantic, United States Tennis Association, their headquarters is in Reston, and so we do work with them on a regular basis. Okay, so for tennis, again, existence costs, so just staff, court monitoring, repair, and utilities, $242,000. And that is offset by the sale of pool and tennis passes. So you'll see there were pool and tennis passes in aquatics and in tennis. Aquatics gets 90% and tennis gets 10. And then it's offset $6.65 per equivalent unit. All right, tennis rentals and programs. I'm going to skip reading the numbers. They have a net profitability of $15,647. So that also goes back into to being a scale to cover some of the existence costs. Good? Okay.
I like these slides, very easy to understand.
Thanks, Sabrina. Robert. Okay. Camps. So our senior program manager, Dan, wanted me to ensure that we had the What Makes RA Camp special. We're in our 42nd year, and we are the longest running camp in Reston. We have a lower camp to staff ratio than most camps in the area. Our camps, Reston is Camp's Playground. That's what it is. They travel all over Reston, and they do go to some non-RA destinations as well. 77 camp scholarships were issued in 2016. This number of camp registrations is up, and we also have 2 additional camp offerings since Dan came on board, so he's doing a good job.
Leave a waiting list too?
For some camps, yes. And I think we're about 70% full right now. And so then as soon as parents are, now they're kind of panicking with what they have going on in the summer and what weeks they have to fill the gaps in, so we'll see that number go up.
Who do we compete with for camps? Reston.
There's a benchmarking slide. So for camps, we have Reston Community Center, the Y, and then there are also other camps, high
Fairfax
camps and
County.
daycares. And
Reston Children's Center.
There's a variety of.
Yeah, they're tiny.
There's a lot of theater camps too.
Lots
Like
to
to
choose
like
from.
camps, there's not quite as many as that are like us.
Okay, just curious.
It sure also depends on the age group.
I just get a flavor for how many, who are all competing for the same pool of kids.
I think another competition question is Lifetime Fitness.
Yes,
Pools.
which is
Pool.
Major.
It's a nice goal.
Okay, so for camps, the expense is $496,000. Their revenue, I do want to point out that the camps here, it does include $20,000, a little over in scholarships. So there's the assessment, like to say $1.50 of everyone's assessment goes towards helping out with the camp scholarships. So camps, that's camps.
I never like to take the money away, but do we have enough scholarships? Like, do we feel like we're meeting the needs of our
Probably
community?
never have enough scholarships.
And that's another separate conversation, but.
That's another day.
It is. I mean, I can tell you that we haven't had, our camps fill, we won't hold spots very long. We do reserve a certain number of scholarship slots because of, from known families that are coming in. But then once it hits a certain point during the summer, we will open those up and pull people off the waiting list so that we can fill the camps. But we have not been turning mass people away. We actually are, we're not supposed to, as long as we have the availability, then we'll provide kiddos with camp. Okay. This slide says camps, but it's actually, this is Lake House. So we're moving on to our two houses, Lake House and Nature House. So as you know, the Lake House Working Group decided on a split rental versus and programs option. They were presented with a program only option for the facility, rental only for the facility, and they chose a hybrid of the two. So remembering that opening was accelerated, we were able to have some mindfulness classes, yoga, boot camp, cookies with Santa, and the after-school program, and also camps. So we had, our program saw 275 registrations from June through December, and then we had 25 events that were for rentals, which ranged from weddings to memorial service and corporate rentals. So moving into the 2018 and 19 budget development, we're taking a look at that model.
Yes.
So it doesn't say Lake House.
No, she indicated that
It's here.
slide title was wrong. It should say Lake House. We'll fix that before it goes out.
Moving into 2018 and 19 and having, we'll have had a full year in Lake House. We are taking a look at some of the classes. Boot camp, that actually will most likely be gone. We didn't have the registration that we were anticipating. Cookies with Santa was fantastic. We'll be having a few more events like that. But I will also tell you that the rentals drive the revenue. I mean, that's really where the dollars are. So when you're looking at programs versus rentals, there's no way. They make more money than programs do.
So do we have a waiting list for our after-school program too?
No, we are slowly filling. That goes back to what Mike was talking about with marketing and appropriate marketing and having a marketing campaign. So for an after-school program, we really need to do more than just have what is in the magazine. So there's a lot of work, I think, that can be done. And our staff has taken a look along with Mike about really, he talked about being kind of consultants. We've looked at the after-school program. Again, we were only in there for 6 months. There was zero time to market. And for the program moving in, now we know, okay, we have these milestones that we can hit for when parents are looking for after-school care. Before the current participants leave, for example, for the summer, they have their registration packets sent to them already for next year. So we have all of our hooks in.
I guess it's kind of a balancing act,
information.
because if you have after school in there, then you can't use it for corporate rentals if somebody wants to use it, or community meeting.
We get more money from the
You
rentals.
get more money, but it's not necessarily constant. But if it's not full and it just.
And what's the breakdown of
How late do
RA
we-
members versus non-members?
the after-school?
And should the gap between what members pay and non-members pay be wider?
For after
And are
school.
we damaging businesses in our community by providing after-school care? Is this something that we as a community should be providing those things? Probably.
They're really good questions, and those are I can talk about them, some of them now, or we can also save some of those for later.
We can save
We can
some.
save
We'll
them.
some.
Just
Okay,
things to think
so we
about.
do have, yes, they're great questions.
When you have this further discussion, can you talk about, do we need to change the hours that
Sure.
Lake House is available?
Mm-hmm,
I know we have restrictions right now.
mm-hmm.
They're better than they were.
They are better,
We
they're
got-
greatly improved.
But they're
We
self-imposed
extended-
restrictions, if I recall.
What?
They're self-imposed restrictions.
The task force, we left we went with their original recommendation, and then we went back and lobbied for more hours.
Based on the feedback, and that goes to,
We
during the week, are we getting requests during the time that after school is in? And member services is tracking all of those requests so that we can continue to evaluate.
And Laura, do you have communications with the schools themselves to say you're available?
Yes.
When does after school end?
June 23rd.
The
No, time.
6:30?
6:30. Sorry, I'm like, June 23rd.
So it's hard for
Which
the
is pretty
community to
standard.
get in, a community.
It's very good, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty standard.
6:30, 5:30, and 6.
Like
Right.
an evening event at the lake house, I mean, which is where you're gonna get more money. It's just not constant, it's.
So right now, we're doing programs during the week, and we don't do any programs on weekends. That's Mike's territory for Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, and then also during the day. Okay, so here's the breakdown, remembering 6 months. So, now this slide's a little bit different, so you can see the darker red at the bottom, that is the existence cost. So that's the existence cost of the facility. Let's see. It's the existence cost of the facility, and right above that is the program and rental costs. Then over to the right, down below, it's really, really hard to see. You can barely see it. It's, oh no, that's, I'm sorry, I can't
No worries.
see.
Breathe. It's okay. You got
What's
it.
going on? Okay, so $75,000 was our 6-month rental with a net profitability of $26,181. And so the remainder for 2016 was supported by the Comstock profit.
Laura, can I ask you a quick question?
Yes,
Are you moving off Lake House? Or are you?
Now, yes.
But that doesn't include our mortgage costs or anything like that.
That does include the principal. What you see on your sheet includes the interest, but worked with Robert and we added the principal in for these slides so that it was more of a true.
Robert, can you give us an estimate of when the Comstock will be used up? Roughly July, September, August? Just, the board just needs to know that.
If you can, so we've got, what, 650 for Comstock, but then we also got the 430,000 in, so we've only got about, I don't want to quote me now, but around about $100,000 left, and we should.
It's August, right? Roughly?
Yeah, August, September time it'll be done, so effectively Comstock's already gone. You can look at it that as well as the $430,000.
That's not
Yeah.
good, I just wanted her to know. Okay.
But we've already started that conversation too with the fiscal committee about
Yes,
that as well. But this was, again, just a picture for 2016, half a year's worth of revenue.
Okay, we have a nature center. How many of you have been to the nature center? Yay, good job. Okay, so the nature center was included in Bob Simon's original master plan for Reston in 1962. So there's really a mix here for the mission to foster good environmental stewardship. You can see that it's a 72-acre property, pavilion, fire ring. It is a LEED Gold facility. We conduct over 340 environmental education programs that you can see the listing there. And we serve over 26,000 program participants and visitors annually. And I can tell you that I think that is extremely low. And that is because that's only visits of people that have come through the doors. So there are many people that just park or come off the pathway and.
Runners use your bathroom?
Or use it, yes, they do.
I don't think that counts as a visitor.
They're on the trail. Then we won't count them, but they're on the trail. So I think that number is very low.
Can you charge for that?
We should charge the runners for that. Revenue source.
What was that for this?
Okay, sorry.
It's okay. This is the Nature Center really is a key natural resource management tool for the association. We have over 800 acres of woodland, and you know the other facilities that Mike mentioned, the lakes, the ponds, the streams. So this is really an education center as well. They also rent the facilities, firing and pavilion. Okay, existence cost. Same drill. Bottom darker red is the existence cost of the facility. The expense for the programs and rentals is in that lighter bar at the top at $114,000. So they operate, there's the tiny sliver. So $12,000 of that at the very bottom is donations and merchandise sales, which go to offset the existence cost. And then the program rental revenue, they have a net profitability of negative $31,000. And that's offset by the annual assessment as well. This is a piece where I think there's room to grow, but I also would like for you to understand that this is an education piece as well. So you can look at it as $31,000 for the education of environmental education and I'm shaking his head over there. So there is a pay to play. I do think they're through the rentals and through the programs. There's definitely, you'll see later, there's a focus to take a look and see where we can maybe close that gap a little bit. Okay, events. Community events. So how many of you have been to a community event? One time, big time, yes, very good, thanks. Okay, so this is a really good example of a fee versus free program area. So Ashley Soloff is our events supervisor, and we have 125 events that reach 19,000 participants annually. Yesterday was Mother's Day, and it was the yard sale. They had a really nice turnout and a good day for being rained out on Saturday. But you can see the column where there's a fee. So those are the events that pay for themselves. So if there's a bus trip, the program fees and the registration pays for themselves. Same thing with Wine and Design and the Appraisal Roadshow. What's free is our contribution to Multicultural Festival, our participation in Bike to Work Day, 4th of July celebration, senior movie days, those kinds of things. Now, it doesn't mean that we don't have some sponsors, but that truly is something that's offset by the member assessment. And this is what that looks like. Expense is $144,000, $37,000 in revenues, and that's ticket sales and registration fees. And then, so for the community events, the offset for community spirit is $5.21 on the equivalent unit. I'm getting close. That's it for the cost centers. Okay, now we're moving on to benchmarking. I know you all know what benchmarking is. We do this every 2 years. Sometimes we do this in between. If we're piloting a program, if something's really performing well, maybe the next year we want to increase the cost. Or if something's not doing very well, we'll also take a look at maybe some reasons why it's not. Who do we benchmark against? Fairfax County Park Authority, the community centers, other homeowners associations, Loudoun County, Arlington County, City of Alexandria. Others, there are, for example, our tennis department, they'll go to, specific tennis organizations and the people that offer tennis, they'll go to Trump and they'll find out how much they're doing, selling lessons for. So this is just a small snippet of who our program managers go to. What we benchmark, price, length of time, how many participants are in the class, the time of day, and that's consistent with all of our program areas. And what happens as a result of the benchmarking process, my staff is completing their benchmarking process at the end of this week. So we're right in the middle of that right now. And sometimes it changes our design. Sometimes we find new opportunities or we find new offerings, or maybe tweak some of the ones that we have. And then, primarily this is the fee structure and are we where we should be with the programs that, and the fees that we have set. So this is what we know even without having the deadline happen. So we either create something new, we tweak it, or we scratch it. So new, you all will be hearing about pickleball programming, and PASS is coming up very soon. So I would look for that email within the next couple of weeks for you all to take a peek at. Tweaked, we're looking at adding additional adult series programs. We've had feedback that programs similar to Memories of Book Memoirs with our 55 plus community, that's something that additional adult series programs are interested in. Tweaked, we're going to take a look at RecTrack, post our first year of it being implemented, and take a look, it was all throughout the department and in Mike's department too, Leonie, is it critical to launch, yes or no? Do you really need that, yes or no? Put it on the list for next year. So now we get to go back to that list and take a look and tweak some things. The kids club started with the after-school program, but some of the offerings like guitar and fishing and those kinds of things, we're gonna open those up to the public, because there's no reason why we shouldn't increase our participation and our revenue, instead of just keeping with after-school. Scratched, bike rodeo. It was such a cute little program. It really was, and it was popular many, many years ago. And we just saw a decline, so then we worked with some partners, and we went to the Y, and we participated in their Healthy Kids Day, and that was great. But it's just, that program is gone. There's lots of other biking opportunities and safety out there, so I'm not saying that's not important, but just for that program. And in spring junior team tennis, it was not going to, we thought it would end up costing more than we could make in, so we scratched it for the spring, but we are looking at that for the fall and kind of revisiting what that may look like.
So do you look to see what RCC is offering before we, because, we get that pushback on competing with?
We do, and we also take a look at where the demand is and where we have waiting lists, and we talk with, for example, there was a bike program for adults. Wrestling Community Center, one of their employees called and said, hey, do you all offer this program? And I said, no, they utilize one of our facilities for the program too. So it's kind of piloting something new. So our staffs do talk, but if there's a waiting list and there's a demand, and we're supposed to operate our facility, foster and create programs, but there is some overlap. But that is something that we take a look at. This is the overall cost recovery. So you can see, thanks Sabrina, the nice pretty chart, that camps has 96% all the way down, so our total cost recovery is 52% for all of the departments combined.
Can I point something out really quick?
Yes.
Is Lake House and Walker Nature Center big words? Sizes are about the same here. It doesn't look like Lake House, the expenses is fully loaded. You have
the Nature Center, don't remember, it's not just the Nature House, it's also the firing, the pavilion, and then they have the trail that goes around. I don't know the answer to the square footage in the building.
No. Size, meaning impact to assessment. So think about that further on in the budget discussion, just keep that, like,
I think
of
they're
our
two
houses,
different
and they're kind of the
operations.
same.
Okay. That's just saying. Okay. Here's your scholarships. Okay, so yes, we offer scholarships to who, there are standard eligibility requirements, free reduced lunch and tax relief, camp swim lessons and tennis lessons. We have offered some lifeguard training programs as well for job entry. I just can't afford to take the class, but I can do it. Okay, come on, let's go. So we've done that, and so over $28,000 in scholarships were provided across all of those categories in 2016.
How many kids are that, do you know roughly?
77 in camps, and I can get it though. I have it.
Just changing lives, because otherwise they're in front of TVs. It's a really good service.
Yes. Especially with camps, it's all day provided, transportation, extended care, all of those things are provided. So there's a place for someone to be for 9 to 10 hours a day. Okay, here's some things that we're going to do, some things that you all need to think about. So we are going to review Rec Track after the first full year. I talked about kind of narrowing the gap and taking a look at the Walker Nature Education Center and that cost recovery. Thinking about that makeup of rentals versus program offerings at Lake House. Mike spoke about the marketing of the programs and rentals and narrowing the gap. That's across all of that's something that we will always continue to do. The two major projects this year were Lake House and then also Rec Track. So now we can really begin to focus more on this piece. Related to scholarships, you all may have heard the terms fee waived versus reduced lunch. And so right now it's either tennis and swimming lessons are free, camps is $25. But what we're finding is that there really is kind of a sliding scale. So we're just exploring the options between, can you pay $25 if you have nothing? That's really to kind of hold your spot, and then that's all that they pay. But then some people really can't pay $100. So we're looking at a sliding scale to see what would work and what wouldn't. pickleball, evaluating additional adult series, marketing unused facilities and field times, the pool schedule. So we need to revisit the pool schedule along with the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee, and then based on the funding that you all approve, then we will go back to the pool schedule and we will maximize it the best we can. And then what's not here either is that fee versus free. Are you comfortable with offering those community spirit and the feel good at that level that we do in each one of the cost centers? Questions?
Would you be able to come back on those free things and tell us what kind of participation we get on those?
Yes, I
In
can.
the community at some point? That's a lot. All y'all, that's a lot.
We got one more.
Who?
I'll be rapid fire. Me.
Oh,
Lori Gandhi.
5 minutes.
You got,
I can do it in 5. I promise. Okay.
thanks, Laura.
So, corporate and board management services, high-level overview. You heard a lot tonight about strategic planning from staff. I spent a lot of time with Melissa in every department, kind of doing strategic planning for every department, so everybody's got a roadmap that matches what the association's overall roadmap is. So we do a lot of planning internally. I believe people need to know where they're going. Board support, oversight and support and recruitment for committees, admin and elections referenda comes out of this department, legal support and coordination comes out of both the departments, corporate and board, as well as management services, policy, research, analysis, and development, any new things the board wants to do, and legislative monitoring and advocacy is going to be coming out of this as well. Focus for 2017, business process review and internal controls, something I'll be working closely with Robert and Garrett on. It's a must-do. Budget development is my big focus. Legal services, I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a minute. Employee retirement plan design, employee health care, merit pool bonus, working closely with Melissa on that. Code of ethics, very important that we get that project done, started last year. It is a passion of mine because I think a lot of some of the things that we experienced last year could have been avoided if we had had that piece in place. Conflict of interest policy amendments. Working with David, he and I have already found some opportunities for improvement on that, things that came off of last year, so there'll be more coming there. Plus, I have a laundry list of goals that were given to me at the end of last year, too. I'm not going to list them out here, but you'll have some more for me? Okay, good. Good. So we've got, that's what we have going on for 2017 and things that I'm working on there. Number of full-time equivalents in there, me and Sabrina. 2 departments covering, again, corporate board and management services. Right now, we have a budget variance of over 20,000 K. That is related to us settling out on a legal suit that was started back in 2013. So we finalized that just this year and out of court. And we also had a building lease matter with this facility with regard to sub-metering and whether or not that metering was done correctly. We found that sub-meters in 3 of our areas were off, so they're being replaced. And we do need to pay a little bit for that now. Hopefully we'll be working on that when we redo the lease in the next year. So high level is where we are there on those 2. So, in-house counsel is probably the biggest project that I'm working on right now. I'm working with the 3-member panel on that, David, Sherry, and Mike. I have produced with Melissa for them a job description for that, for in-house counsel. It's going to cover 5 different areas. Corporate and board matters, there's a little laundry list there. I'm not going to read that to you. Management matters, management service, contract, HR. Covenant matters, land use matters, and finance. That in-house position will oversee all 5 of those functions. 3 of those, I believe, are some specialty services that we still need to work with some outside counsel on. So again, job description is with the panel for review, and I just tossed over the fence an RFP today for the specialty services on covenants and finance. Land use, we could bid that out, but I can tell you we're going to get a lot of no thank yous because
There's only a handful of firms that do land use,
right,
and they're
and
working
they're
for
already,
developers.
right, exactly. So I think at this point in time, we're going to have to stay where we are there on that. But that's an important project, and it can have impact on the budget. I can tell you that all of the senior leadership team, your team managers now, very much feel that in-house counsel is needed on a day-to-day basis to help guide some of the things that we're doing. We've grown as an organization over time, and we need to go to in-house counsel for that with some specialty. So that is an important project on the docket that I'm looking at. So I wanted to make sure I highlighted that for you there for 2018-19. More to come, I'm sure, from David, Sherry, and Mike on that as to where we are, but just definitely think that's an important focus. Some of the other things that are on my mind that need to be put in front of you are paying down the Lake House Bank loan. Very important. Robert's got some options that he's going to be bringing to fiscal committee next week. He started the conversation last month with them, but we really do need to keep that in the forefront of our minds. So we should really take the opportunity to get rid of our debt. We've never carried debt before, so let's not. Let's get rid of it. Urban design guidelines are desperately needed for everything that the Design Review Board is looking at. So I'll be working closely with Larry, Anna, to put those together with the DRB and with our Land Use Council. Something important, we might need to invest some time and attention in bringing the Urban Land Institute in to help us out, possibly in doing that. We need to start renegotiating the lease for this headquarters space. I've started that quietly with Land Use Council, with the Specialty Council on commercial leasing. Our lease isn't up until 2021. Now is a great time to begin the conversation and looking at that. So we're looking at some various options that I'll talk to you guys about at another time, but it's time to look at it. Also, identifying alternative sources of revenue. That is so important. There are opportunities out there with different corporate sponsors and grants that we need to really take a deep dive on. Anything from corporate sponsorship of our existing facilities, a big corporation helping us out with that, to using grants to help get some of our projects in the ground. So that's where I want to turn my attention in the next 2 years. And those are high-level items as well as all of the other laundry list of items that staff have given. And as I promised at the beginning of the session, I'll put those all on one sheet of paper so you can see all of the different things that we're thinking about, and we can have a richer conversation. Okay, I did that. Done.
Are you done?
Yeah. Done.
Wow.
Yeah.
What do we do the next 2 minutes?
So just, well, one thing I wanted to say is the aquatics group and Laura and Kate have been looking at how we might be able to add hours back into this year's pool schedule. So they're fleshing out their budget to see if there's some in there based on all the feedback we've been getting. So they're doing a really good job. They've given us lots of options. So looking at those two, that's all I wanted to say. But she said that fast and you jumped up fast. Any questions or comments?
Very quickly, Linda, I just want to let you guys know I will not be applying for the treasurer spot. These past couple weeks, I've been focusing at home quite a bit. I have 2 in college, and I have 2 who might not go to college if I don't start paying more attention at home. And you guys are in really good hands, and I will help out with whatever's needed. And I'm telling you guys now because I might not see you guys as regularly. So thank you. It's been a treat.
Well, thank you, David.
Thank you.
for all you've done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, and I have a whole list of things that really I'd love to see get done.
Okay.
Put it in the email. And more questions, right?
All right. So I can't thank the staff enough for staying here and for giving us all this stuff to think about. It's a lot, and you guys are doing a lot, and we all appreciate that. More to come as we dive deeper into the budget, so a lot more questions coming from us, I am sure. So thank you for tonight. You guys have any party comments, or can we adjourn? Let's adjourn.
Adjourn.
Adjourn. Thank you.